Hello, this is your host, Adam Graham, from Pretty Much the Present. And in this video, we'll be bringing you a compilation of old-time radio detective podcasts from 2010. The podcasts are appearing, for the most part, unedited, except for some extraneous or repetitive elements that are being removed because this is a compilation. As I said, these are old, so any websites or offers mentioned may not be valid at the time you're listening unless you find them on our website currently. Now, with that said, here is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, send it to me, box13 at greatdetectives.net. Remember, you have today, tomorrow, and Wednesday to cast your vote every day for Andrew Rhines and the Old Time Radio Daily Westerns in the Podcast Awards, podcastawards.com. I want to start out with a comment I got from Kathleen, who says, I am much enjoying the Thin Man series, Adam. So much, in fact, I've gotten them queued up for the DVD side of the Netflix subscription we started from clicking on the button at greatdetectives.net. I also found My Man Godfrey indirectly, and while not a mystery, I've learned a whole lot about time in history. Your broadcast adds so much to the quality of my life. Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. It's much appreciated. And, yeah, My Man Godfrey actually does star William Powell, who starred in the Thin Man movies. And there really is a great world of entertainment available at Netflix. One thing I've got my eye on is a DVD that has 3 of the Burns and Allen movies from the 1930s. So you can try it as well. Go to greatdetectives.net, click on the Netflix links, or go to netflix.greatdetectives.net. We're going to get into today's episode of The Thin Man. This one comes from yet another Armed Forces Radio Services production. Like Frontline Theater, the Globe Theater brought a wide variety of radio shows to our troops overseas. This episode was originally broadcast over the networks on December 1st of 1944. It's the All-American Menace.
Presenting radio's most popular mystery comedy, The Adventures of the Thin Man, starring Claudia Morgan and David Gothard. Night, and in the apartment of Joan Winslow, an attractive young thing just out of bobby socks, Plunger Belson, a husky young bruiser just out of football socks, is talking to someone on the telephone.
Yes, pal. In my opinion, pal, you are the type of rodent that carries a bubonic plague, of which there can be no lower. Goodbye.
All right, Plunger. Now come back to the couch and tell me how you carried the ball in the fourth quarter for Gerald Ipswich.
Joni, I hope you're a female with an understanding personality.
What are you mad about?
I just spoke to the individual who calls himself Alistair Thornton.
Oh, him.
I'm going out to kill him.
Plunger, you've got to tell me what happened in the fourth quarter.
This is no night for romance. I'm going to murder him. So long.
No, Plunger, don't! Plunger! Hello, Nick. You remember me?
Should I?
I'm Joan Winslow. You once got me out of a lot of trouble.
Oh, I've got a feeling I'm going to regret that. Of course, I remember you now, Joan Winslow. Come in.
Well, what is it, Nicky?
Joan Winslow, darling.
I see you're in your pajamas. Were you sleeping?
Oh, don't let the pajamas fool you, Joan.
Is that real hair you got on your chest?
No, I buy it for the yard in Macy's. Is that what you came down to see?
Well, of course not, you silly. I'm just nervous. You see, it's about a man.
What do you want to do, marry him?
No, kill him.
You mean murdered?
Well, what else would I mean, Goofy? Now, how can I kill him without getting into trouble?
Are you kidding?
No, it's Alice de Floridan.
The decorator?
Yes, you know when?
Mm-hmm. The heel. Why do you want to kill him?
Because he wants to marry me. And his personality doesn't appeal to me.
Well, that's a brilliant reason.
Look at me. Do you think I could drive a man wacky? Can I pass as a femme fatale?
Well, you'd be sort of a femme fatale junior grade. What's that got to do with it?
I could stab him in the back and claim self-defense. Or maybe I ought to use a gun or some arsenic. Nick, what do you recommend?
Look, Joni, with me, sleep is a major occupation. Now, you go back to your kindergarten and leave a tired old man alone.
You think I'm joking?
Well, aren't you?
No.
Joni, I'm going to talk to you like a father. Come here and sit on my lap.
All right. But are you going to be a papa or a sweet daddy?
Joni, where do you pick up such ideas?
Well, ever since I got out of midi blouses and into high heels, all the men want to talk to me like fathers.
Well, this one is going to act like one.
What are you doing?
Turning you over into the official position for spanking.
No.
Yes.
Oh.
That's for getting weird ideas about murdering you, Hen.
Oh.
That's for waking me up. And even worse, this is for getting me out of bed.
Oh. Nicky.
Hello, dear.
Nicky, who spilled that girl all over your lap?
Hello, Nora.
What was he doing to you?
Thanking me.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure. My feelings are hurt.
Okay, now, Joni, on your way. You'd better forget about murdering anyone. Now, scat.
All right. But you'll be sorry if I make a mess of this murder.
Nicky, will you answer?
Oh, can't you?
No, dear. I'm very busy dancing with Cary Grant.
Oh, nuts. Hello.
Hello, Nick. Did I wake you up?
Oh, not at all. I'm talking in my sleep.
This is Alice de Floridan.
Floridan? Haven't you been murdered yet?
How did you know?
Never mind. What is it?
Just that. Someone wants to murder me.
Who?
Well, there are oodles and oodles of nasty people who hate me. Some of them are my best friends. Nick, what's the best way to fool a murderer?
Listen, Floridan, I'm not the Mr. Anthony of criminology. Where'd people get the idea of bringing their murder problems to me? I'm just a well-to-do bum living on his wife's income, and I'd like to sleep.
Really, Nick, you wouldn't like to see me killed, would you?
For free, yes. If you're charging admission, no.
Now, Nick, I know I'm obnoxious. Oh!
Floridan! Floridan! Hello. Hello.
What happened to you?
Mr. Floridan was just bumped off, I think.
Well, that'll teach him not to call us in the middle of the night. Isn't he the man Joni wanted to kill?
That's right, baby. Wiggle into your woolies. We're going to his apartment.
Oh, I do wish people would get bumped off before we go to sleep.
Come in, Nora.
It's dark. Where's the light switch?
Yeah, I've got it.
There he is, Nick. Bleeding all over his Chippendale table.
Yeah, shot in the back. Somebody took this joint apart. I wonder what they were looking for.
Do you think little Joni killed it?
I don't know. I thought the spanking made an impression on her mind.
Nick, you're not going to find the killer in that desk.
No, but I think I found a secret door. Maybe I can open it.
Darling, did you ever have a queer feeling that you were being watched by unseen eyes?
Since we used to neck in the living room of your Aunt Agatha's house before we were married. Hey, I opened it.
Oh, the bulb in this lamp is still warm. Darling, I've got a feeling the killer's still here.
Hey, Nora, look at this stuff. Here's a doctor's prescription for some sort of poison. Why'd you turn the lights out?
Well, I didn't.
Now to return to tonight's adventure of the Thin Man. We find Nick and Nora holding down the floor of Alice de Floridan's apartment. Someone who had been concealed there turned out the lights and fired at them.
Oh, are you all right?
Mm-hmm. I guess whoever fired at us got away.
Yeah, looks like it. Why'd you scream?
You pushed me down and I bumped my curves. Did you see who went out that door?
Oh, darling, your heel was in my eye. Turn on that lamp.
Mm-hmm.
And look, Nora, that closet door near the light switch is open. That's where the killer hid.
Well, aren't you going out and find the person who did it?
And get shot at again? And besides, I want to finish going through this secret drawer. Will you look around the rest of the drawer?
All right. What else is in the drawer besides that poison prescription?
Clippings. About a wealthy Mrs. Gardner who was held but never tried for poisoning her husband in California. Oh, wait a minute. Here's something else.
What's it?
A letter signed by Richard Belson, the stockbroker. It's a confession that Belson embezzled funds that belonged to his clients. Darling, don't you get it? Alistair Floridan was a blackmailer. He evidently made quite a business of it.
Is he ever on the football team of Ipswich College?
Oh, I hardly think so. Why?
Because I found little gold football here. The name Plunger is engraved on it. Also the date 1940.
Will you find anything else?
Mm-hmm. This necklace has a locket on it. Joan Winslow's name is on the locket.
You certainly seem to be losing things around here. I'll take that. Hello?
Hello. This is Olga.
Oh, hello, Olga, darling. How are you?
Who is this?
Alistair, of course. Whom did you think?
No, you are not Alistair Floridan. He always calls me double vodka because I am such hot stuff. You are Nick Charles, no?
Yes.
Alistair is dead, no?
Murdered. How did you know?
Olga knows. You found a prescription, no?
Yes, who told you?
Olga knows. I tell you what that prescription means. I tell you who killed Floridan.
You seem to know everything that's going on.
Olga knows. Come to apartment 8B, 999 East 89th Street at once, and I will tell you. No?
Yes, I'll be there. Who told you I was here?
Olga knows. Goodbye.
Goodbye. That was Olga, dear. Listen, I'm going to meet her. Will you go to see Joni and find out what her necklace was doing here?
You sound like you're trying to get rid of him. Suppose I go to see Olga.
Oh, well, then I'll go to see Joni. I've got a good mind to give her another spanking.
You sound too anxious to see Joni. I'll see her. I'd much rather you see someone you don't know quite so intimately.
Hello there. Anyone home? Olga?
Nick Charles?
Yes, where are you?
Here in the bedroom. Come in.
Well, hey, there are no lights on in here. What's the idea?
I find it better to do business in the dark.
Where are you?
Right here, behind you.
Couldn't that be a gun you're poking into my back?
Yes, Nicholas.
What are you?
A Russian she-wolf.
Well, don't look now, but one of your arms is crawling around my neck.
Yes, it makes it easier to get into your pocket. Do you have any objections?
Yes. Did you pick my pocket without tickling?
Oh, I am sorry. But perhaps this will make you more comfortable. Are you unconscious?
Yes.
You must be a very hot-blooded man. It takes you so long to go out cold. But I fix it. Better? Better.
Joni, where you been? Oh, you ain't Joni.
No, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Isn't Joni home?
No.
Oh, well, I'm Nora Charles.
You better come in and wait for us.
Oh, who are you? Joni's boyfriend?
I guess so. We prefer to think of each other as soulmates.
It's all on a very elevated basis.
Yeah, too elevated.
What's the matter? Are you having trouble?
Look at me. Do I look like a guy who's easy to twist around your little finger?
If my little finger were a steam shovel, it'd be a lead pipe thin.
Well, Joni can do it. She makes me do anything she wants. Makes me feel like a big dope.
Maybe you should be firmer with her.
How?
Well, be tough. Menacing.
Me?
Mm-hmm. Haven't you ever been menacing in your life?
Oh, not with girls.
When, then?
When I played football for Ipswich College.
Football? Ipswich?
Yeah, I was All-American back. 15. You know, Maybe if I got into my football mood, I could handle her.
Well, why do you want to handle it?
Well, take like now, for instance. She shouldn't be out traipsing around. She should be here. Home. 1, 2, 3.
What on earth are you doing?
Getting into my football mood.
Well, do you know Alistair Florton?
Yeah, why?
Do you have a little gold football with the name Plunger on it?
Well, I used to. Plunger is what they call me. Plunger Belson.
Belson?
Well, what's so amazing about that? Everybody has a second name.
Are you in the stock brokerage business?
No, my dad is a broker. Hey, what are you up to?
Oh, nothing.
Don't kid me. You didn't come here for nothing. This has something to do with that rat Florton.
Well, I'll explain when Joni gets here.
Now, look. My dad is a very sick man. If you or anybody else tried to make trouble...
Please, Plunger. You better go back to worrying how to handle Joni.
Okay. You know, if I had someone to tackle, it'd put me in just the right mood.
I'm sure it would. What are you looking at me that way for, Plunger? Don't you run at me.
I'm going to tackle you.
Great, no.
I go yet.
No. What's the matter with you, Plunger? You lost your little mind?
You know something, you do. You know all about my dad and Florton, don't you?
Well, suppose you untackle me and let me get off the floor. I don't like conversations on a low level.
You won't get up until I squeeze the truth out of you, and I mean it.
Plunger, you sure worked up a swell menace now.
That tackle did it.
Nora.
Oh, hello, Joni.
Nora, what have you done to my Plunger?
Hello, sweet.
Plunger, what was he doing to you?
Don't you worry, Joni. He didn't fall for me. He was showing me how he makes a flying tackle.
Oh, when Plunger talks about football, he gets impulsive like that. Did he hurt you?
Well, there's one thing I'm sure of. Football isn't my game. Oh.
Nora, what are you doing with my purse?
Getting out this gun, Joni. I thought it looked kind of bulky. Get 'em up, both of you. Now, Plunger, suppose you tell me how you and Joni killed Alistair Florton.
The Cossacks.
You feeling better now?
What? Who are you?
Laura Marshall. I live here.
Where's Olga?
I don't know what you're talking about. I just found you draped on my bearskin rug, unconscious.
But you were surprised.
Uh-huh. I don't like men when they're unconscious. Who are you?
Nick Charles.
Nick Charles. Oh, Alistair told me he was going to call you.
You know Alistair Florton?
Yes. Did anything happen to him?
He was murdered. How well did you know him?
Too well. What happened here?
A gal named Olga phoned me, told me to come here, and said she'd tell me who killed him.
Olga,
You know her?
Yes, but... how much did you find out about Florton?
He was a blackmailer and an all-around jerk.
Well, it looks like little Olga's trying to get me into trouble. She was one of the women he blackmailed. There was some suspicion that she killed her husband with poison.
Wait a minute. I had a prescription that could send... It's gone. Olga stole it. The other papers are here.
Do you have a letter written by Richard Belson, the broker?
Yes, here. What do you know about it?
Belson wrote that letter years ago to his partner. The partner refused to prosecute and gave Belson a chance to repay that money. It was paid back, every cent, before the partner died.
How'd Florton get the letter?
I don't know, but I do know he was using it. You see, Belson has a son, a football player named Plunger. The old man is very sick, and Florton thought that this would be a good time to hit the son. The shock of a scandal like this would kill the old man.
Florton was a sweet thing, wasn't he?
He knew his way around.
Why are you telling me this?
I'm not dumb. You'd find out anyway. Look, I'm trying to help you because I figure you'll keep quiet about me. Is it a deal?
Maybe. How about helping me some more?
Anything you say.
Come with me.
Where are you going to take me?
See my wife and a junior femme fatale named Joni Winslow.
Hello, Nick. You just came in time. Joni's confessed to killing Alistair Florton.
Joni, what made you do it?
Well, Alistair was in love with me, and he threatened me with all kinds of things unless I married him. Then, tonight, he got fresh and broke my necklace. So I killed him with the gun Nora's got. And Plunger's football was on it. And the necklace, I mean. He gave it to me for a present. Not the necklace, the football. See?
Oh, Sure. Let's see the gun, Nora. Well, this gun hasn't been fired since 1902. Has cobwebs in the barrel, look.
Oh, gee, I knew I should have cleaned it.
Why'd you lie, Joni? To cover Plunger?
Yeah, Nora. You see, early tonight I said I was going to kill Thornton. He was trying to blackmail me into giving up Joni because he was in love with her. He had a letter my father wrote years ago.
I know all about that letter.
But I didn't kill him. I swear I didn't. He wasn't home when I came to murder him.
I know you didn't kill him, Plunger. Olga did. Tell us how you did it, Olga.
Are you talking to me, Mr. Charles?
Yes. You're Olga.
You're crazy.
Checked with the elevator operator. He saw you enter Florton's apartment. He saw you leave after you shot at it. You stole that prescription because it proves you murdered your husband in California.
You can't prove that.
Every word of it. In fact, Florton gasped your name into the telephone receiver when he was talking to me. You know, you should never kill a man while he's on the phone, Olga. It interrupts the conversation.
Get him up. Don't move any of you.
Oh, God, without cobwebs.
Yes, you.
Oh, he's flying at me.
What a tackle. Just like in that game against Harvard.
You're getting very good at tackling women, Plunger. You knocked her out. And look what fell out of her figure. The prescription. Nick, you never told me the sergeant said her name on the phone.
He never did.
Darling, you're wonderful.
Oh, I don't know, baby. Any experienced husband could have pulled the same trick.
Well, what's an experienced husband got to do with it?
Well, he, too, knows how to tell the right fibs at the right time.
And now for the solution of tonight's Thin Man adventure.
All right, darling. I know how you eliminated Joni, but how'd you eliminate Plunger?
Well, I figured that the dame who phoned us at Floridan's was the killer. She knew entirely too much about what was going on. But she fooled me by getting rid of her accent and offering to help me. Her object was to pin the job on Plunger after she got that prescription.
And when the prescription was stolen, and not the letter Plunger's father wrote, you suspected her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But there was always the possibility that she wasn't Olga, so I lied right to her face, accusing her. She, like many another amateur murderer, was under a tough nervous strain, and she pulled the gun and gave herself away.
Mm-hmm. I never knew you were such a wonderful liar. Did you really spank Joni when I came in on you?
Of course, dear. Don't you believe me?
Mm-hmm. You're too good a liar. You never spanked anyone before. I don't think you even know how. Oh! Well.
Believe me now?
Yes, dear. Good night, Nicky, darling.
At this time, we'd like to remind you of the Globe Theater Radio Playwriting Contest. The contest is open to all servicemen and women, and no past writing experience is necessary. Your scripts may be written longhand or on a typewriter, and should be mailed to Contest Editor, Armed Forces Radio, Los Angeles, USA. We suggest that you keep a copy of your radio scripts, since we can in no way assume responsibility for them. Your special service officer or your local Armed Forces radio station can supply you with sample radio scripts. Or you may address Contest Editor, Armed Forces Radio, Los Angeles, USA. Next week at this time, we'll be back with another program with Amos and Andy and their special guest for the evening. Until then, good night.
Welcome back. Well, we saw some 1940s humor. It wouldn't fly today. There were some, I think, funny lines. I love Nora's line that she wished people would get themselves knocked off before they went to bed. Them being the Charleses. So this has really definitely gotten into a rhythm. This, by the way, is the last episode in existence we have with David Gothard as Nick Charles. So we'll be introducing you to Les Tremaine next week. Remember, you can follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives and become one of our friends over on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. So with that, let's go ahead and we will take a listen.
Stay tuned for Nero Wolfe. This Sunday marks the premiere of The Big Show on NBC. Not just any big show, it's the big show. NBC's hour and a half of comedy, music, and drama. The best of each. The Big Show will be heard every Sunday afternoon over most of these stations, with Tallulah Bankhead as Mistress of Ceremonies. Your stars for this Sunday's broadcast include Jimmy Durante, Fred Allen, Ethel Merman, Frankie Lane, Mindy Carson, Meredith Wilson, Danny Thomas, and hosts of others. All this and Tallulah, too. No wonder it's The Big Show.
My boss is the smartest and the stubbornest, the fattest and the laziest, the cleverest and the craziest, the most extravagant detective in the world, Nero Wolfe.
It's the adventure of The Case of the Dear Dead Lady, with that brilliant, eccentric private detective, orchid fancier, and gargantuan gourmet, Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Nero Wolfe had just come downstairs, having tended to his precious orchids. He was, as usual, seated in the library, which served as the office. He had just dialed a phone number, and, with his eyes closed, was leaning back in his specially built chair, which was big enough for two, but not two of him.
Halsbrecher's Market, domestic and imported delicacies.
Mr. Halsbrecher, this is Nero Wolfe.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Wolfe. I was just about to ring you.
Well, I have need of 2 pounds of duck liver. I do not, of course, refer to the commercialized Strasbourg pâté.
Well, I appreciate the order, Mr. Wolfe, but...
Next, my cook Fritz informs me that we will require 3 fine fat geese.
Look, Mr. Wolfe, there's a little matter of an unpaid
You
bill.
might add 12 cases of beer, a bushel of Vermont apples, green for stuffing, and a gallon of Marquesa Patricia Roman oil.
Mr. Wolfe.
In addition, Fritz has listed 6 dozen eggs, 4 braces of Sussex woodcock, and a few pounds of Westphalian ham. You have all that?
Well, I can get it, Mr. Wolfe, but my bookkeeper...
Thanks very much, Mr. Halsbrecher. That will be all. Now, now then, Archie.
Yes, boss?
You seem to be worried.
Oh, I am. This means, naturally, that I'm supposed to handle Halsbrecher's delivery boy when and if he shows.
I had thought of leaving that simple matter to you.
And what about the simple matter of the money?
Money?
I hate to bring up a vulgar subject, but where is it coming from?
Oh, of course. You're right, Archie. I should have said...
Said what?
Charge it.
Boss, look, you don't realize I know, but we're into that truffle broker for $500 bucks and change.
All right. Then give him a check.
Okay, I will give him a check. And I hope they'll let you keep the orchids in your cell.
You're a wit, Archie.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm on the bank's mailing list. We got a notice this morning.
You don't mean...
Oh, but I do.
Again?
Yeah, you just can't take money out of an account, boss. Sometimes you gotta put some in. This is the only way to deal with the man I work for, and if I hadn't thrown him that scare, he wouldn't have been willing to listen when the door buzzer rang, and a prosperous-looking young guy in the kind of clothes that don't grow on trees came in and stood in front of the boss's chair, fiddling with the brim of his pork pie.
My name is Oliphant, Mr. Wolfe.
Oliphant?
Yes, sir, Oliphant. I am the spiritual leader and guiding head of a small religious group known as the Seekers of the Inner Power.
I see. Also a man addicted to marrying neither wisely nor well, but often.
You read the papers?
I do.
Mr. Wolfe, I am as aware of my sin-ridden past as anyone else is. The point is that I'm no longer that kind of man. Even a person such as I can see the light in time.
Good. Might I ask why you've come to see me, Mr. Oliphant?
I need your help, Mr. Wolfe.
Concerning?
A certain young lady with whom I'm deeply in love. Oh, I beg you not to confuse the present emotion with any of my earlier escapades. What I feel for Miss Dana is the pure and righteous glow of an upright seeker of the inner power.
I promise to look on you as thoroughly redeemed, Mr. Oliphant. Proceed. Oh, by the way, do I recognize the name of your young lady as a Park Avenue socialite, an amateur swimming champion?
Yes. But she's sweet, wonderful, beautiful. I've asked her to marry me, and she's given me some hope. In time, I fully expect to make her my wife.
Well, then where's the problem?
The problem is the presence of another man in her life.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm a detective, not a matchmaker.
This isn't a question of making a match, Mr. Wolfe. I have much too much respect for your talents to think of offering you such an assignment.
Exactly. What do you want me to do?
I want you to save Ilse Dana's life.
Her life?
Mr. Wolfe, this other man I spoke of is insanely jealous. Not only of Ilse's present, but of her past as well. He has threatened to kill her.
I don't doubt your earnestness in this matter, Mr. Oliphant, but how would you know?
I was listening on an extension in Miss Dana's apartment a few days ago when Hunter called.
Hunter?
Yes, sir, Jack Hunter. Known as Jack the Babe Hunter.
Wait a minute. I know that canvasback.
Huh?
Sure, he's a coffee and cake prelim waltzer.
Oh, he's not. He's a boxer.
Archie is being fancy. Overlook it, Mr. Oliphant. Is Hunter in love with this lady of yours?
I doubt it. He's a man of complete moral and spiritual corruption, I believe.
Naturally you would. But what are the facts?
In my opinion, he's after her for her money.
She has money?
To burn.
And you, Mr. Oliphant?
Me?
Can you also afford to burn?
How much do you want?
The answer to that would be astronomical. However, if you leave a check for, say, $7,000, I shall look into your matter the very moment I have completed a little research into the nutrition of the Polynesian orchid.
Oliphant's check gave our bank account a slight blood transfusion. I think it was the boss's plan to spend a week or two in the plant rooms before he got busy on the case. And he'd have done it, too, if that phone call hadn't come in about a little after 9, just after Wolfe had polished off one of Fritz's dinners and was settling back with a stein of beer in his hand.
Don't disturb yourself, Archie. I'll get it.
Now, well, look out you don't strain yourself, boss. You got to straighten out an elbow to reach that receiver.
You have an unfortunate flair for mixing humor with impertinence, my friend. Hello, Nero Wolfe speaking.
This is Ilse Dana, Mr. Wolfe.
How do you do, Miss Dana? We were discussing you only this morning.
So I've heard.
Through whom?
Ted Oliphant.
I see. The young man seemed to be quite worried about you.
The young man should tend to his own affairs.
Said you were in some danger.
I know what he said, and not one word of it was true.
Oh?
I'd like to talk to you, Mr. Wolfe.
I'm sure it'll be an immense pleasure. Where do you live?
I have an apartment at 22 Blanton Street. Could you be here soon?
I could be there in a quarter of an hour, Miss Dana. By proxy, of course.
The proxy, naturally, was yours truly. 10 minutes later, at 20 past 9, I walked up to Ilse Dana's door with a nosy elevator boy giving me the 00. The reason for his interest was that her door was open and the room inside was empty except for a little twisted pile of pale pink satin, which at close range turned out to be a woman. Which woman turned out to be Ilse Dana. And Ilse Dana was dead.
She used to be pretty. She isn't now.
Yeah, strangulation doesn't help any girl's looks, son.
Make anything of it?
Well, the position of her body and the bloodstains on her pointed fingernails tells me that she put up a tough struggle before somebody succeeded in smothering with a pillow from the sofa over there.
Yeah, that figures. When did it happen, I wonder?
Yeah, the last 15 minutes, I'd guess. Say, who's been up in the elevator this evening?
Nobody for her.
Well, somebody came up.
Well, who says not? They could have used the stairs, you know.
Yeah. How well do you know Miss Dana?
I know exactly zero about Miss Dana.
How could you ride her up and down every day and know nothing about her?
It's a rule of the house to keep your mouth shut. The rule also goes when being questioned by a cop.
A cop? Who's a cop?
Oh, I guess you're a cello player from the Philharmonic.
Look, I happen to work for a guy named Nero Wolfe.
Oh.
Heard of him?
Maybe.
Well, if your memory comes alive, son, I might see my way clear to spend a few dollars with you. Understand?
I'll keep you in mind. Going down, mister?
I spent time trying to get sense out of the superintendent and a set of chambermaids, but they were as quiet as a ballpark on Christmas Eve. Then I called the cops and told them about Oliphant and Hunter. By the time I got home, the house was dark and Nero Wolfe was sleeping. Next morning, I gave him the details while he drank 3 bottles of beer. When I finished, he sat for a long time and then started another bottle.
The prize fighter. What about the prize fighter, Archie?
Hunter? Well, I phoned the hotel he lives in before you got up.
And?
They told me he wasn't in.
You know, I begin to think that Mr. Oliphant brought us a more absorbing case than he suspected.
You know, I'm glad you like it.
I don't like it. I don't like work of any variety. But this thing has its points.
Well, what do we do next?
Next, we investigate my client.
What?
Merely because a reformed playboy employs a detective doesn't exempt him from suspicion, Archie.
Oh, now who's that?
I'm afraid we have no choice but to open the door and see.
My name is Young. Barstow Young.
It's nice meeting you, Mr. Young. What do you want?
I want to see Nero Wolfe.
About?
About a certain young lady with whom I am deeply in love.
What? Will you repeat that?
I want to see Mr. Wolfe about a certain young lady with whom I am deeply in love.
Her name, please?
Ilsa Dana.
Is it possible that you entertain plans of making her your wife?
Why, yes, but there's a problem involved.
Another man?
Yes.
Well, do come in. Do come in. I think we've been waiting for you. Oh, Mr. Wolfe. Here's another one.
Ah, Mr. Wolfe.
You've come to me about Miss Ilsa Dana, sir?
I have come to you, more specifically, about a man who has threatened her life.
How unusual.
He's the treacherous kind. Mild-mannered, you know. As we say in my profession, he underplays it.
Your profession, then, is the stage.
It is, sir.
Go on, you interest me deeply.
I was present recently when he told her that he would certainly kill her unless she mended her sinful ways.
Sinful?
No one denies that Ilsa has had, shall we say, a checkered career. But the man's attitude is totally fanatical.
What's his particular brand of fanaticism, Mr. Young?
Theodore Oliphant is a religious maniac.
Well, what do you know? He's come to give Theodore a bad report card.
I don't understand. I've come to ask Mr. Wolfe to prevent his murdering Miss Dana.
Am I allowed a direct question, sir?
Why, of course.
Where were you between 9 and 9:20 p.m. last night?
9 and 9:20. Why do you ask?
You said I was permitted a direct question.
Oh, well, I was walking in the park, as I remember.
Do you make a habit of walking in the park?
I have lately. I'm preparing for an important role in a forthcoming production. What's so important about last night?
From your point of view, a great deal, sir.
Well, what do you mean?
Last night, Miss Ilsa Dana was murdered.
What?
Mr. Goodwin here discovered the body.
No.
I'm afraid I must insist, Mr. Young.
Why are you looking at me like that? Are you accusing me of...
I have accused you of nothing, my dear sir.
Well, now, look, you're making a mistake. Oliphant killed her. You may be sure of that.
I have your word.
I know him. He was trying to reform her, wanted to make her a devout follower of his cult, the Seekers of Power. I heard him tell her to her face that if she refused redemption, he would see to it that she didn't live on in her wickedness.
You could produce other witnesses?
You know, in your own smug way, you're as detestable a character as I have ever had.
All right. Let's everybody take 5. Yeah?
Nero Wolfe?
He's busy. This is Archie Goodwin.
You'll do, Goodwin. This is Jack the Babe Hunter.
Oh? How are you?
Great. Except the cops seem to want to talk to me about some murder fandango because, as I get it, you named my name.
You got it wrong.
I doubt it, and I'm coming over there to set you straight. Why'd you ring me in on this mess, Wolfe?
You knew the girl pretty well.
Me and how many more? Besides, what time was she murdered?
Last night between 9 and 9:20.
I see.
So if you would inform the police where you were at the time, that should be that.
Yeah.
By the way, Mr. Hunter, where were you at the time?
I don't see your badge, Wolfe.
I was only wondering.
I haven't been near the Dana woman for over a month. But if you're really interested, I'll give you the name of the killer.
Please do not keep us in suspense, Mr. Hunter.
A couple of years back, Ilsa financed a guy in a big and lousy Shakespearean play that closed like a clam and nothing flat.
Go on.
It was money down the drain. The guy's got nerve. And he was in love with her, and he figured she'd do anything for him. So he comes back to her to finance him again. This time in Hamlet, no less.
I see.
I don't have to tell you what a flop that would be.
You needn't tell me the actor's name either.
You know?
Mr. Barstow Young just left here.
Yeah? Well, he's your man, Wolf. He got so sore when she told him she wouldn't toss any more moolah into his broken-down career, he went off his rocker and tore it down.
Your reason for thinking so?
I met him on the street one day, and he started beefing to me with blood in his eyes. It's all I could do not to punch him.
The results might have been less fatal if you'd followed your instincts, sir.
I couldn't. Guy's built like a broomstick. He's weak as a cat. Hit him once, he'd crack like dry plaster.
I see.
What's on your mind?
This man you're accusing of Miss Stayner's murder, Mr. Hunter, he was very much in love with her. She was thinking about marrying him, he said.
He said?
Yes, he did. I heard him, too.
He was talking through his skull cap. Ilsa wasn't going to marry anybody.
No?
No, she couldn't.
Why couldn't she?
Well, she just couldn't, that's all. So long.
Well, now we got a perfect circle with everybody pointing at everybody else and nobody able to prove a thing.
What Hunter says isn't impossible, Archie.
You think Young did it?
I don't think at all yet. But if there's anything more dangerous than a woman scorned, it's an actor scorned. We have another visitor.
Yeah, who are you expecting?
At this point, anybody.
Hi.
Oh, you.
Yeah, I told you might hear from me.
Come on in.
Who's this?
A fellow runs the elevator at 22 Blanton Street. What do you got for me, kid?
Postcard?
Postcard?
Yeah, the cops missed it, but I spotted the edge stuck under a rug.
Nice of you to have delivered it.
Or maybe he was just being curious.
Curious?
It's not every elevator boy who has a chance to see Nero Wolfe in the flesh.
Oh, him? Come off it, High Pockets. I'm here because you mentioned something about spending a few bucks.
Oh.
I wouldn't cross the street to see the best gumshoe that ever breathed.
Look, gumshoes don't breathe, and how would you like a sock?
Archie, pay him and let him go.
Yeah, pay me and let me go.
Sure, Mr. Wolfe. Here you are. Thanks.
Don't mention it. Anytime, pal. Anytime.
How do you like that fresh little punk?
Archie, the lad has done us nobly.
Yeah?
Typewritten card addressed to Miss Ilsa Dana.
Well, what's it say?
Rather peculiar message. Have you prayed tonight? It's signed with a single letter O.
Have you prayed tonight?
Yes.
Signed O?
Exactly. Weird, isn't it?
Well, what's weird about it? What could be plainer? Have you prayed tonight? Now, I ask you, who is the man in this deal who's interested in praying?
All of us, I hope, are God-fearing.
All right. But I ask you again, what does O stand for?
It could stand for O'Brien, Obituary, Omaha.
What about Oliphant?
Oliphant, too.
What's with this indifference? The case is cracking and you slough it off. You remember what Young said? Oliphant threatened to kill her because she wouldn't join that cockeyed movement of his.
Don't exhaust yourself, Archie. We have a hard night ahead.
Yes, but I don't understand.
But I don't mean to stifle your imagination, my friend. But if you'd reserve your deductions for a little while, you could lend me some much-needed assistance.
What do you want?
I want you to become a burglar.
A burglar?
I want you to hurry over to the dead woman's apartment on Blanton Street and ransack it.
For what?
How do I know? We need help. Anything may help us. Go through the place with a fine tooth comb.
I tore the late Miss Dana's apartment to shreds, but I saw nothing. Then, just as I was about to give it up as a bum job, I noticed a little writing desk in the living room. Pried loose the lock and spotted something among a pile of papers that belonged to no well-to-do flat. It was a pawn ticket, lot 8N046, and the address was a pawn shop around the corner on 6th Avenue. It wasn't more than 90 seconds later that I walked into the joint and tossed the ticket across the counter.
Oh, yeah, this, want to redeem it.
And fast, huh, Pops?
Yeah, it's nothing that's worth much, mister.
No?
No.
Oh, what is it?
This? Small steel filing box.
Oh. Anything in it?
I don't know. Come to me locked, never been able to get it open.
We got it open, Wolfe and I. Smashed the front end with a poker. There were some odds and ends inside, old earrings, some thumbtacks, a cigarette lighter, just trash. Then the boss stuck his fingers in and pulled out a plum.
This is it.
What do you mean, this is it?
You fail to recognize this classic document?
Huh?
A marriage license, Archie. A marriage license.
Yeah, well, whose marriage license?
The wording is self-explanatory. Listen. This is to certify, etc., thus licensing on this 3rd day of May, 1946, the marriage of Miss Ilse Dana to Mr. Johann Jaeger.
Johann Jaeger?
Exactly.
Well, who in the world is Johann Jaeger?
We'll soon see.
I don't get it.
I can understand. It's a befuddling little puzzle. It'll be very easy for one to make a fatal mistake here.
But, of course, you won't.
I won't.
3 hours later, I'd herded all the suspects into the office, and he sat in his chair and glared at them. Oliphant, Young, and Hunter. It was tense and tight, and the boss let it stay that way, saying not a word to anybody while he calmly sipped his beer. It was Oliphant who cracked first.
I didn't kill Ilse. I couldn't have.
Jealousy is a very compelling motive, Mr. Oliphant. And you came to me, remember, complaining that there was another man in Ilse Dana's life?
Whatever I complained about, and jealous as I was, I didn't kill her as the sacred power is my holy judge.
Being unacquainted with your sacred power, I'll have to ask you for a better authority.
Sacred power.
Oh, it simply wouldn't have been possible for me to have done it.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Because I was at Mickey's Night Owl Club last night from 7 until 4 a.m.
Contemplating the sacred power, no doubt.
That can be proved, Mr. Oliphant?
Let me call now. Let the head waiter tell you.
Will you take your embarrassment as an indication that you're telling the truth?
Hey, wait a minute. You can't let him off like that.
Don't be bothersome, Archie.
Yeah, but we got that card he wrote, the one about have you prayed tonight, signed with his initial.
He didn't write that card, Archie.
Now, look.
And the O is not his initial, is it, Mr. Barstow Young?
I'm afraid I don't understand.
On the contrary, I am afraid you do. But for the record, I'll explain. Oh, Archie.
Yes, boss?
Hand Mr. Young that large red volume off the shelf behind Mr. Hunter's head.
This one?
That one, thank you. Now then, Mr. Young, you will favor me by opening the volume to page 1133.
But why?
Open it, sir. Good. You will now count 6 lines down from the top and read what you see.
Have you prayed tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Young.
What the devil is going on?
Mr. Young has just given us a reading from a tragedy. The line, have you prayed tonight, is spoken by the hero to the heroine just before he murders her. The name of the heroine is Desdemona. And the hero, as I'm sure you all know, is Othello.
Othello?
Yeah, the O was not Oliphant, Archie. Othello, I think, was a Shakespearean play which Miss Dana financed for our Mr. Young. And knowing she would recognize the quotation as well as the threat behind it, he sent it to her to warn her that he meant to murder her. You won't have the unmitigated gall to deny that, will you, Mr. Young?
No, I don't deny it.
Do I call the police?
But I didn't kill her. The fact that I sent the card doesn't mean I killed her.
Well, it'll do for my money.
But not for mine, Archie.
What?
Mr. Young couldn't have killed Miss Dana.
Why not?
Because he lacks the strength to strangle such a healthy young woman, a champion athlete. Wide awake and full of fight. He's rather a frail person, as we know, and smothering Miss Dana with that pillow was no easy task. She struggled. Therefore, she clawed the wrists of the murderer. I'm sure that if you examine Mr. Young's wrists, you will find no scratches or scars.
Here, let me see that.
Go ahead.
Well, Archie?
Yeah, you're right. Nothing.
I was sure there wouldn't be. The person who actually killed Miss Dana was a powerful physical specimen.
Yeah?
Yes, Mr. Hunter. In all probability, a professional athlete. A muscular man in good condition.
You pointing at me?
Seems quite likely, doesn't it?
You're out of your head.
Am I?
Yeah.
Ilse Dana war Ehefrau. Nicht wahr?
Jawohl. I mean...
You said yeah, Mr. Hunter. And you meant yeah, yes. I asked you in German if Ilse Dana was your wife, And you, in the heat of emotion, answered me yes in your mother tongue.
Look, what's going on here?
Allow me to present Mr. Johann Jaeger, Archie.
Him?
I've known it since we first saw that marriage license. You see, Jack Hunter is the English translation of our friend's real name back in Germany, where he comes from, Mr. Johann Jaeger.
Oh, what do you know?
So you proved nothing. Yeah, I was married to Ilse. That's why I said she couldn't marry anybody else. But I didn't kill her. She was my wife. I loved her.
Oliphant told us you were insanely jealous of her.
What if he did? You know better.
Do we?
Sure you do. Ilse told you herself over the phone that every word Oliphant said was a lie.
Interesting.
What is?
How you could possibly know what Ilse Dana told me over the phone. I haven't mentioned it to you or anybody else.
Oh, well, you see...
I see most clearly, Mr. Jaeger, that you must have been in the apartment with her listening on the extension phone, or you couldn't possibly have that information. And it was only a few minutes after that telephone call that Ilse Dana was smothered to death.
And I see it's about time I said good night.
Wait a minute, Jaeger. Wait a minute.
Good work, Archie. I advise you to sit still, Mr. Johann Jaeger Hunter.
I was right. I told you he threatened to kill her.
But why?
I've only guessed at the story, reconstructed it, so to say. But I think you and Mr. Young ought to be congratulated.
On what, sir?
On not having won your fair lady. You've always thought of her as a sweet, demure society girl. But actually, she was a vicious person, as bad as the man who killed her, if not worse. She tortured him cruelly for 4 long years.
How can you say that about her?
How can you doubt it, Mr. Oliphant? There must have been a great many men in her life. We know at least 2 definitely, you and Mr. Young.
But she was in love with me.
She was in love with me.
I'm sorry to shatter your illusions, but she was not in love with either of you. She was using you for her purpose.
What was her purpose?
Tormenting the man she married. That was her preoccupation day and night. She delighted in tyrannizing over him, as one might in breaking a bull or taming a wild mustang. Do I come near the truth, Hunter?
Yes. Until I couldn't stand it any longer.
May I ask then why you married her?
Why? Because I couldn't help myself. I crawled for her. I married her on the terms that nobody should ever know I was her husband. She was too good for me, she told me that to my face over and over. That we belonged to different worlds. But I was crazy about her, so I took it. What I've taken you wouldn't believe.
Oh, I'm sure I would, Mr. Hunt. I'm a very understanding man. The question is, will a jury believe you? That we must begin to learn immediately. Archie.
Yes, sir?
Phone for Inspector Kramer.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story by Peter Berry was based on the famous characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman program produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Herb Ellis as Archie Goodwin and Lee Millar, Marna Keneally, Larry Dobkin, Barney Phillips, and Jerry Hausner. Next week at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you The Case of the Headless Hunter. Don Stanley speaking. And don't forget, this Sunday marks the premiere of The Big Show on NBC. Not just any big show, it's The Big Show. NBC's hour and a half of comedy, music, drama, and the best of each. The Big Show will be heard every Sunday afternoon over most of these stations, with Tallulah Bankhead as mistress of ceremonies. Your stars for this Sunday's broadcast include Jimmy Durante, Fred Allen, Ethel Merman, Frankie Lane, Mindy Carson, Meredith Wilson, Danny Thomas, and hosts of others. No wonder it's The Big Show. And Theater Guild on the Air this Sunday presents Judy Garland in Miss Alice Adams. So don't forget, Tallulah Bankhead brings you The Big Show Sunday on NBC.
Welcome back. Before we go, I do want to say a special thanks to John for giving a nice tip to the show, and we went ahead and we sent access to our premium site as a special thank you, which we do to everyone who gives a tip of $7 or more. Well, that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Let George Do It. Well, you have asked for it. When will there be an app for the Android phone? The answer is now. Our partners at Wizard Media have made the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio app available for your Android phone. Just do a search on your phone in the Android marketplace, and it's available at the same price as the iTunes app. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to take a listen to today's episode of Let George Do It. Serenade to the Southern Star.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Serenade to the Southern Star, another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice, changes my stock and trade. If life is a whirlpool and you're smack in the middle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
My good Mr. Valentine, there was once a man named Bluebeard who could not endure the thought of leaving his lady friends alive. But it is much more horrifying when you suspect that a woman has developed this same complex regarding her men. We are musicians, and she took an interest in our little group. When we all arrived in your city a few days ago, we were a quartet. Now we are a trio. And unless you help us immediately, there is every reason to believe we may become a duet. If you think this is facetious, may we add that the lady's two husbands have also disappeared. Sincerely, the Parnassus Trio, Steamship Southern Star, Pier 42. Valentine, Miss Brooks, my name is Paul. I am the conductor of our little symphony.
Oh, how do you do?
And this young man is Stuart, my drummer.
Hello.
About as musical as a pelican, but he so politely said he wanted experience for his college education.
Don't worry, I'm getting it, too. Stuart, are you the one that this female Bluebeard has her eye fixed on?
Oh, gosh, no.
No, her tastes are a little more sophisticated. It is our third member, Fabio. He is in the next room asleep.
Yeah, he always sleeps.
The sleepiest piano I ever had. So amiable, though. He is Latin, that is all. Well, so my letter intrigued you, huh?
Well, how could it help it? Who is this femme fatale?
Her name, Mrs. Devereux. Her age, who cares? She would not admit it anyway, but her wealth is enormous.
Uh-huh. Where'd you meet her?
She traveled with us on the last trip. Now we find she is going to repeat the voyage, leaving tonight, for the sake of Fabio.
Oh, wait a second. You mentioned another musician.
Yeah, you see,
I will tell the story. It was Jose, the cello. First, Mrs. Devereux liked him. They left the ship together 2 days ago, but yesterday at the company office I ran into her, and she claimed she had not even seen him. We checked, we called. He is nowhere.
Did you try missing persons?
Of course, that is all taken care of.
Well, surely he'll show up sometime before you sail.
I hope so, but I am afraid not. Anyway, what we need you for is poor Fabio.
Why, Paul? What makes you positive Mrs. Devereux is so deadly?
Yes, how do you know anything has really happened to this Jose or to the two husbands you mentioned?
As I told you, Miss Brooks, there is nothing we can prove, but the woman is...
She is simpatico. She is charming. She is beautiful. Like you are, Miss Brooks.
Oh, Fabio, please. But I'm not wealthy.
Oh, well, life is full of tragedy. How do you do, Mr. Valentine?
So you're Fabio, huh?
Well, don't say it like that. I'm a nice guy, just a lazy egotist, that's all.
I gather you weren't in on writing the letter.
Oh, well, I knew about it, but, well, if there's thinking to be done, I leave it up to Paul and Stu.
And the same goes for action.
You guessed it. Well, I am on my way topside now. I sleep better in the lounge, but she is a lovely woman, Mrs. Devereux. Hasta la vista.
Mr. Valentine, you have the expression, to be around. Well, I have been around. No matter what Fabio says, there is danger, I know.
But if you just don't want him to be near this Mrs. Devereux, why don't you leave him behind? Take a different pianist this time, then have her investigate.
But we were threatened.
What's
we
that?
were told, yes, we were told we all had to make this trip just the same as usual. No change.
Oh, wait a minute. Now you said something, friend.
I wish we could say more. It was a note, typewritten, left in our cabin. I wish we could say send it.
That's where I fit in. Well, to start with...
Mr. Valentine, there is no time for more explanation. Every second counts. You are coming with us.
What's that?
Gee, it's only a 12-day cruise to San Miguel and back.
Take a look around you. This is a nice cabin, no? And all the ship's employees are living nice. There's even a swimming pool. Everyone is a king.
Oh, I get it. So that's it. What kind of a crown have you picked for me to wear?
The athletic instructor said you will take his place.
Athletic Tarzan with sneakers.
Yeah, well, what about Miss Brooks?
There is always room for an extra manicurist in the ship's barber shop. I have angles. I can arrange it.
Oh, George, I don't mind. I'd do anything. I'd love it.
Easy, Brooksy. 12 days is a long time for us.
Mr. Valentine, you must believe me. We are not crazy. We were threatened.
Okay, skip it. Well, Brooksy, if we're going to pack up the scissors and boxing gloves, we'd better get going.
Gangplank's still here.
May I have your stateroom numbers, please?
We're ship's personnel.
Oh, give me your names. I'll check them all.
Claire Brooks, manicurist.
Up you go.
George, my red bag.
Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. Valentine. George Valentine, athletic director. Hey, come on, hurry up, will you?
Oh, here it is. Hey, mister, you're already on board.
Huh?
There's your name crossed off already.
Oh, you're nuts. I'm Valentine.
Yeah, I know. It's an old trick, mister.
Look, let me on board, Buster. I'll get the purser. He'll tell you.
Better luck next time.
Look, fun is fun, Rollo, but... Hey, wait, I'll show you some identification.
No, all I know is the orders are getting your names checked off. But if you got a real beef, there's a company man down at the pier there, guy in the gray suit, bald, see?
But you don't...
Nothing else I can do, mister.
Okay, bureaucrat. Hey, I'm sorry. Excuse me, will you? Let me through, will you please? Excuse me. Hey, you! Hey!
On voyage, Matilda!
Oh, brother. I don't care how much it costs. You run a water taxi, don't you? I don't care if you have to chase that ship all the way to San Miguel. Get going.
Well, Valentine, the captain was certainly not impressed with your little demonstration of climbing a ladder.
But, Mr.
He
Kelly...
said, Purser, I want you to speak harshly with this man. Very harshly. He held up the boat 5 minutes. 5 full minutes.
Yes, sir, I know.
He said some other things, too, which I won't repeat.
But look, Mr. Kelly, I told you the guy at the gangplank had crossed my name off.
Nonsense. Bonded employee of the docks. Been there for years. Never makes mistakes.
Well, then somebody else used my name. I don't know.
Well, we've just completed our usual inspection. There's no one extra on board. Excuses won't get you any further.
Okay, I'm very sorry.
That's better. Now, there's work to be done before morning. Sort out the shuffleboard equipment. Deck tennis net needs repairing.
Yes, I'll get on it, Mr.
Oh, yes, and you might vulcanize that rubber horse for the swimming pool. I think it has a slow leak.
Yes, I'm sure it does.
Oh, George.
Oh, hi, Angel.
Gosh, are you going to miss the boat on our honeymoon?
Be forewarned, I'm a man with gangplank fever.
All right, we'll take a train. George, I've spotted that Mrs. Devereux already.
Yeah?
She has cabin 3A. Probably out on deck someplace now. She's not exactly what I expected.
Oh, excuse me. Good evening.
Oh, hello.
My name is George Valentine. I'm the new athletic director.
Oh, athletics.
You don't like them?
They always make me think of gym bloomers. I'm Mrs. Devereaux.
Oh, how do you do?
I had a husband once who was an athlete. He played polo until the horses simply loathed him.
Oh, I see.
That's how he died, you know. One of the horses hit him back, right there in the fourth chukker.
I didn't know. I'm sorry.
Why? Nobody else was.
Well, I mean, I didn't realize Mr. Devereaux was...
Oh, no, you're all confused. Mr. Devereaux ate himself to death. It was frightful. The doctor told him 300 pounds was too much, and it was.
Oh.
The one with horses was Mr. Phipps, my first. Now, do you understand?
Oh, perfectly.
Oh, the music stopped, hasn't it? It's such a shame making them play the first night just because it's a cruise ship, don't you think?
Yes, it is.
I have to be going now. I'm meeting someone. Mr. Valentine, was there anything in particular you wanted to say to me?
Oh, well, no, I just understood you'd been on this trip before, and you see, I'm new, so... Well, I thought you might be able to give me some suggestions on organizing games and stuff.
Oh, you certainly came barking up the wrong tree, didn't you?
Yes.
I may as well tell you this. Everyone else aboard gossips about it, I suppose. I'm only here for one reason. There's a musician named Fabio.
The sleepy one.
Yes. Yes, he's lazy and charming and probably a liar. But he flatters me, Mr. Valentine. That's very important to a woman.
Yes, I can see that. Mrs. Devereaux, didn't the orchestra used to be a quartet? Wasn't there another musician? Jose or something like that?
What? Gracious, now you're getting confused again, aren't you? Then I suppose it's because of all that exercise you do. Well, they've always been a trio. Bye-bye, Mr. Valentine.
Always a trio, huh? Okay, Buster, whoever you are, come on out of there. I said out. I'm allergic to being followed. Oh, blackjack, huh? Drop that. Come on. Drop it. Well, Stewart. Cruel haircut and all. Come on, now, let's hear some talking, brushhead.
I can explain, Mr. Valentine. Don't hit me.
Never mind. You're going to round up the rest of the trio, drummer boy, and you're going to round them up fast.
Yeah,
We're having a little orchestra practice right now.
Young fool, Stuart.
But I told you I was only going to use the blackjack on myself. I mean, just lie there and make Mr. Valentine think I'd been knocked out.
Romantic you. Please, I have business to attend.
Okay, all of you. You're going no place.
Well, neither are we. That was the idea, wasn't it, gentlemen? To get us aboard the ship by telling us a phony story.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not phony.
There was no musician named Jose who disappeared. And you neither know nor care about Mrs. Devereaux's ex-husband. Does that check?
I told you she's a lovely woman. I would not lie.
Very well, Mr. Valentine, you're right. Mrs. Bluebeard was a figment of the imagination, and we did want to lure you aboard.
Sure, I wanted to make the story look better by having you find me like that, but we did get a note. That part of it is true. We were threatened. Well, we were.
Okay, why? And this time I want the truth.
Here, Mr. Valentine. We were going to tell you in due time. Look here in this drawer.
Oh, look at all the cigarette cases.
Uh-huh. Lighters, camera, a wristwatch.
And please understand, they are gifts. Gifts, not stolen.
Oh, they're worth only a couple of $100 altogether. Nothing big.
Where'd they come from?
Well, you see, a ship's musician is not overpaid, but when you have been around a while, there are tricks to help.
Go on.
You see, in the days of Prohibition, I was on European boats. And when we got to New York Harbor, I would invite a few friends aboard for, well, shall we say, parties.
You mean you smuggle liquor?
No. Parties, that is all. Sell a few drinks to my friends.
Uh-huh. And now what do you sell?
To Mexico and back? For the ladies, naturally perfume.
But we don't even sell it. A few lovely friends come aboard. We exchange gifts, that is all. Tiny bottles, nothing the officials would object to.
Yeah, but duty-free just the same.
You are splitting hairs. At least you will admit it is nothing important enough for someone to threaten our lives over.
Yet the note told us we had to make this next trip as usual. We had to. No change or else.
Well, it could make sense if someone is using you for real smuggling.
Exactly what we thought.
Something they put in a gift box of perfume, I suppose.
Now, where'd you get them?
There's a man in San Miguel who gives us cash for these presents. He also sells us the perfume.
I see. And you got me along to hold hands with you the next time you go ashore to meet him.
But don't you see, our only hope is to catch the real smugglers. Now, if we just came out and told anybody about all this, well, golly, the steamship company would fire us. The union would take away our car.
You guys ought to have your heads knocked together, and I should have mine examined.
Please, in the meantime, you'll enjoy the voyage.
Look, friends, somebody's already tried to scratch me off.
His name on the gangplank list. And the only one who could possibly have touched the list are the ones who came up the gangplank.
Yeah. Whoever runs this deal, whoever threatens people, is right here on this ship. Oh, bon voyage.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. If you've ever oiled a door hinge, you've seen the oil run down the hinge and collect at the bottom. Now, how about oil on parts inside your car's engine? How can you keep the oil from dripping off cylinder walls and pistons so these mirror-smooth surfaces are safe from corrosive rust? Believe me, no ordinary motor oil will stay on these vital parts for long. But RPM motor oil is compounded to keep a film of oil on every inch of internal metal at all times. Whether your car is running hot or standing cold, RPM won't drip off. It stays put, protecting parts left bare and exposed to wear by ordinary motor oils. RPM also stops sludgy carbon and lacquer deposits, keeps the whole engine system cleaner. No wonder motorists say RPM gives extra protection, and no wonder it's first choice in the West. Get it at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations, where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. And now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. You're aboard the palatial luxury cruiser Southern Star under false pretenses, and the three musicians who hired you were so nervous they played false notes on the truth. However, the voyage is well underway now, and it's no secret that there's somebody aboard who doesn't want you around, somebody who's already tried to get you off the ship, somebody who has something to do with a dangerous bit of smuggling. Still, if you're as much a philosopher as George Valentine is, you resign yourself grimly to the hardships of a pleasure cruise to San Miguel.
Any luck, George?
No, you, Angel?
Down in the beauty shop, they think I'm crazy. You know, eager beaver kind of crazy. I've managed to give a manicure to every woman on this ship, plus half the men.
Oh, you've learned about a hanghouse.
Yeah, just about. George, I'm scared.
Oh, now take it easy.
But I'm not going to just let you go ashore with Paul at San Miguel.
I know it.
What do you suppose is in those bottles of perfume? Narcotics?
Oh, I don't know. The way I see it, Brooksy, our job is to run a switch, change the whole routine.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, Mrs. Devereaux.
Well, I see you've met somebody, haven't you? Isn't it wonderful aboard ship how everybody manages to meet somebody?
Yes, we were just talking about
talking about the dance tonight, of course. You are coming, aren't you? Everyone's invited, you know.
The dance? Oh, yes, I'll be there.
But you'll dance with me, won't you, Mr. Valentine? I mean, it's frightful if you like to dance and like a musician at the same time. I mean, never the twain shall meet. I mean, well, don't you think so?
Mr. Kelling, what time do we go ashore tomorrow?
Oh, I don't know. Anchor around 8. Officials come aboard. We send a lighter in with the baggage. Around 11, perhaps.
I see.
Anyway, as I was saying...
Hello?
Well, you look very lovely, Miss Brooks. Perhaps you'd care to...
Mr. Valentine.
Oh, look, Mr. Kelling, all day that woman's been hounding me. She's afraid you won't ask her to dance.
Why?
Mr. Valentine.
Yeah, she thinks you're the best dancer on the ship.
Why, if it isn't Mrs. Devereaux, shall we...
Mrs. Valentine.
I was just saying you look lovely tonight. Lovely.
Very neat. Uh-oh, what's the matter, darling?
Brooksy, listen. Meet me on the boat deck in 5 minutes.
What is it?
I'm going to take up the profession of smuggling myself, that's all. Boat deck in 5 minutes.
George!
I'll see you later.
Hello, my friend.
Okay, I want to talk, Paul.
So?
This is a good place back here.
Strange, no? There's something I wish to say, too. I have been thinking and discussing with Fabio.
Yeah, what about?
The reason we were threatened in the first place. The reason the smugglers did not just let things take their natural course.
Okay, go on.
When we arrived in the States the last time, we did not make the usual telephone calls to invite our perfume friends aboard.
No?
No. Instead, there was a little delay while we debated. You see, Fabio thought it would be a good idea to just give all our perfume to this woman he wishes to impress, Mrs. Devereux.
Only you and Stu voted him down.
Yes, but it must have been the delay that scared someone, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense.
I think it is very interesting. And tomorrow, perhaps...
Paul, you're staying aboard ship tomorrow.
What?
I want you to give me all those cigarette cases and junk you sell to the man in San Miguel. I got a plan.
George!
It's me.
Oh.
What's the matter? You disappointed?
No, Oh, of course not, Stuart.
Well, it's so hard to ever find you alone to talk to.
Oh, we're all so busy. This is the boat deck, isn't it?
Uh-huh. Best place to be alone on the whole ship.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Gee, you're beautiful. You've got eyes like the stars.
Why, Stuart?
A fellow gets a lot of experience traveling, you know, but I've never had anything happen like this.
You mean smuggling?
Oh, that. Only, yeah, maybe that's it in a way. Gosh, tomorrow we may all be thrown in jail or die or something.
Stuart, what time is it?
I don't care, though. None of it's important. Time or space
Oh, Stuart, for heaven's sake.
Huh?
Listen.
Oh. Somebody's overboard.
No, the pool.
Look, it's a man. I think I can reach him.
George! Take it easy, darling. You've been asleep, that's all.
Yeah, sure, and a hammer works.
The doctor gave you a sedative.
Hey, was I awake before?
Just for a few minutes last night.
Last what? Hey, and Brooksy, the ship's not moving. Where's my watch?
It's 10 o'clock in the morning.
Huh?
George, who was it? Who did it?
I don't know. I was hurrying along the deck and the Empire State Building fell on me. 10 o'clock. Almost shore time. Hey, Brooksy, hand me my coat.
I will not.
Come on. Give me a boost.
George, I don't care about that smuggling. Those crazy musicians can take their medicine. I don't
Somebody
care.
tried to kill me, Brooksy.
That's what I mean. They'll do it again.
Angel, and what's left of my head, I remember there's something to find out.
The cigarette cases and...
Last night I picked up this stuff. Then after Paul left, I dumped it in this locker for safekeeping. I was planning to sneak it ashore on the first lighter as a baggage boy, try to trade it for perfume. But I guess it takes a knock on the head to give you perspective.
What do you mean?
I mean, everybody figures a smuggle only works one way, into the United States. But remember that threatening note the boys got?
Yeah?
Well, that threat would make a lot more sense, wouldn't it? If the sender of the note knew the stuff was already in their hands, packaged for delivery.
And ready to be smuggled into Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, golly, well, there's nothing in this one.
Oh, wait a minute, Angel, this camera.
Oh, George, it's a bracelet.
Yeah, little bauble that's too hot to be peddled in the States, I guess. And there are some millionaires in South America, too.
Well, hello.
Oh, Fabio.
The boats are here, our music is over. I'm on my way for a little nap. Oh. What are you doing?
Mr. Valentine, you should not be up.
I'm all right.
Oh, but your head, gee.
Yes, you should sit down. You look pale.
First boat for shore, everyone. First boat for shore. Hurry, please, everyone going ashore.
Mr. Kelling.
Hurry, please.
Mr. Kelling, come here.
What? Why, Mr. Valentine, you shouldn't...
No, I'm all right. I just realized I like a lot of people around. That's all. I need them.
Oh, please, I am so sleepy.
Then wake up, Fabio. Brooksy, show it to him.
See?
Huh?
Well,
Yeah. Sure, it's pretty, isn't it? Maybe there's even some more on this trip. I don't know yet.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
Okay, Mr. Kelling, I'll make it fast. Somebody in the United States wants to send this stuff to somebody in Mexico. Somebody like the perfume man. They get a smuggler to supervise the deal, and the smuggler picks a patsy.
No. 3 patsies, Mr. Valentine.
Only this time the smuggler knew I was aboard, and he made a slip with a pencil.
I do not understand.
Well, I'll tell you. It's been bothering me for a long time, and now I think I've got it. My name was crossed off the gangplank list, remember?
Yes, someone did it while coming aboard to stop you from being here.
You keep saying that, Fabio, and you'll realize how silly it sounds.
What?
Now, how could anyone walking up a gangplank draw a line on a piece of paper in somebody else's hand?
Well, gee, maybe he...
It just didn't happen, that's all.
Oh, now, really, the line was there.
Correct, Paul. But the line must have already been there before the gangplank guard ever got the list. Okay, Mr. Kelling, you're the purser. Maybe you can tell me what on a ship or who on a ship would be responsible for marking up such a list. Can you tell me, Mr. Kelling? And who'd have access to everyone's cabin to smuggle things in and out and leave typewriting notes? Look out. He's tougher than you think.
I saw you used a gun on you last night, Valentine.
Oh, no, Buster. Here's your chance for round 2. Well, Angel, that's it. And like Fabio, I'm very sleepy.
Yes, Mr. Valentine, I promise. Never again will I organize little parties for my friends when the ship reaches.
Look at Fabio over there by the rail with Mrs. Devereux. He has the right idea.
No. I'm too old, much too old. But I've been thinking, stamps. People collect stamps. And I travel many places. Perhaps if I could organize...
Paul, if you don't mind, we'd like to be alone.
Huh? Oh, excuse me.
Well, this is something new, darling.
Well, I just like to look at the moon, that's all. All right, I won't look at the moon.
George, it's still several days until we get back home. And the captain does seem to be an obliging sort of man. And there's even an orchestra right here. I mean, well, doesn't it give you any ideas?
Oh, sure, Angel, sure. How about organizing a game of shuffleboard tomorrow?
At some time or other, everybody has seen Joe Smith go whizzing along the highway with his boy beside him and big, broad smiles on their faces. If we were in the back seat, we might hear Junior say, "Gee, Pop, what did you do? Soup this car up?" And if it's the Joe Smith I know, he'd answer, "No, son, I just got a tank full of Chevron Supreme gasoline." Now, you just try this premium quality gasoline in your own car, and I'll bet you'll agree Chevron Supreme gets the best out of your car. It's specially blended to give faster starts, faster warm-ups, alert getaway in traffic. And its ping-free power just lifts you over the hills, and hills you used to call steep, too. Chevron Supreme is climate-tailored. It meets every driving condition in the West's different altitude and temperature zones. In fact, for today's high-compression engines, you can't buy a better gasoline. Ask for it at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations, where they say and mean, "We take better care of your car." Next week, in the midst of another adventure, you will find George Valentine and Brooksy at the scene of an automobile accident, and...
It must be suicide, George, don't you think so?
I think so now more than ever, Brooksy.
What do you mean?
This note the police took off Freeholder's body. Old man Sturman was leaving him $250,000, quote, with full knowledge of the misstep Freeholder made as an accountant, unquote.
Oh. So you think he killed himself so he wouldn't have to answer for embezzlement?
I don't know, Angel, but it gives me an idea. There are 2 other people mentioned in the will. And right now, I'd like to find out what's in store for them.
tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Francis Robinson as Brooksy. Let George Do It was written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Ted DeCorsia as Paul, Jerry Hausner as Stuart, Jay Novello as Fabio, Junius Matthews as the Purser, and Lee Patrick as Mrs. Devereaux. Music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, I had suspicions about the purser throughout the episode, just because there were so few speaking roles that I thought really plausibly might have done it. By the way, an alert listener noticed something on a show we did a couple weeks ago, A Matter of Doubt. Keith says, a mistake in the end. Didn't George say the guy couldn't talk because he was shot in the neck? Yet he could threaten the boy. That's a point. I suppose you could stretch and say it was dramatic lessons, and what they were showing in that flashback was what the boy was afraid the guy would say if he could actually talk. No, actually, on second thought, that just doesn't work too well. So you're right, writers made a mistake. But when you're turning out 52 scripts a year or thereabouts, that'll happen now and again. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. Before we do get started, I want to remind you about Audible. Audible allows you to bring the world of books right to your ears. So even if you can't sit down and read a book, you can listen to great literature or catch up on the latest New York Times bestseller or any book that might catch your interest. You can try Audible out free for 14 days. Go to audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio to start your free trial. And remember, if you do want to, and you've got an Android phone, our app is now available in the Android store for the great detectives of Old Time Radio. All right, well, let's go ahead and we're going to get into today's episode, the last with Basil Rathbone, the Baconian Cipher.
Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invites you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And I want to ask you something. You know, every now and then I've told you about the good old American custom of serving a glass of sherry before dinner, particularly Petri California sherry. And I wonder if you've tried that Petri sherry. Really, a glass of Petri sherry is the best beginning a good meal ever had. Petri sherry is clear, fragrant, and truly delicious. It's a wonderful wine whose flavor is the essence of luscious, sun-ripened grapes. And Petri makes two kinds of sherry wine, a regular sherry and Petri Pale Dry. If you don't know which you prefer, try them both. Don't buy one, buy two. But remember, always buy Petri, because Petri wine is always good wine. Well, I'm sure Dr. Watson's ready for us. Let's go in and join him, shall we?
Come in. Good evening, Mr. Bartell.
Evening, Doctor.
Quiet, Willie. Quiet, Monty. Lie down.
The dogs seem very pleased with themselves tonight. Did they have a good day?
Yes, the three of us did, my boy. Go on, run off out in the patio. I took a 7-iron and some old golf balls on the beach this afternoon. I improved my game, I think, and the dogs had a great time chasing the golf balls. On the way home, the little rascals had a furious battle with an elderly pelican. So their day was complete.
I'll have to join you on one of your afternoon strolls, Doctor. You and the dog seem to have so much fun.
Oh, I'll be glad of your company, Mr. Bartell. Well, draw up your usual chair, and I'll get on with tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure.
From the hint you gave us last week, I guess a Frenchman played a prominent part in the story?
Yes, indeed he did, Mr. Bartell. His name was Francois Lavillard, and he was a detective of some note in his own country. The time my story begins, it was in 1889, to be exact. Lavillard had come over to London to discuss with Holmes the difficulties of translating some of his monographs into the French language. At this particular time, I was in the early days of my marriage, Mr. Bartell, and this fact, combined with a busy practice, meant that I saw very little of my old friend.
He must have missed you, Doctor.
Oh, well, he did. Well, of course, he'd never admit the fact, but to get on with my story. One cloudless June afternoon, I found myself in the neighborhood of Baker Street, and I couldn't resist paying a visit to Holmes. Mrs. Hudson was out, but having retained my old latchkey, I let myself in and mounted the familiar stairs. It gave me a strange feeling as I raised my hand to knock on what once had been my own living room door.
Come in.
Oh, hello, Holmes.
Monsieur Holmes.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I didn't know you...
Watson, my dear fellow. How very nice to see you again.
It's great to see you, Holmes. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No.
I didn't know that you had company.
Not at all, my dear fellow. We're delighted, aren't we, Lavillard? Watson,
oui.
this is Monsieur Lavillard.
How do you do, sir? How do you do?
Enchanté, monsieur. I have often wished to meet the so charming Dr. Watson. Holmes has told me a great deal about you.
Oh, it's very nice of you, sir.
That suits you, Watson. You look splendid, old fellow. Gained a little weight, haven't you?
Yes, a few pounds, I believe.
Here comes you. Sit down, won't you?
You sure that I'm not interrupting you in some important discussion?
Oh, no, mon cher docteur. We were having a good-natured argument on the relative abilities of the French criminal compared to the English.
Oh, interesting.
You must lend me your support, Watson. Monsieur Lavillard is convinced that the English criminal is a very dull dog indeed.
Well, we've met some far from dull ones in our time, I assure you, Monsieur Lavillard.
The exceptions rather than the rule, I fear, mon cher docteur.
You're stubborn, aren't you, Lavillard?
Believe me, my dear friend, that I will yield to no one in my admiration of your knowledge and skill. That is why I wish I could persuade you to practice in Paris. There you would find opponents really worthy of your steel. What can happen to interest you in this land of grey fogs, boiled potatoes, and pots of tea?
Gracious me, for my soul, sir, you're not very flattering.
Oh, don't be so insular, Watson.
Oh, I meant no offense, my friend.
Well, you say that the English criminal is dull. Well, perhaps if you were to read a published story of mine called A Study in Scarlet, you'd think differently. It tells of a very exciting adventure that Holmes and I had.
I have read it, my friend.
Oh, you have?
An extremely gripping story, but surely you will admit that the crime was essentially of American origin.
He's right, Watson. He's perfectly right, dear me. What can I do to vindicate the dishonor of the London criminal? Let me see. Oh, yes, of course. A copy of today's Times. That's fine. I shall introduce you to a section known as the agony column. Where is it now? Oh, yes, here we are. This should convince you of the color and variety of English life.
The agony column? Mm-hmm. It sounds most painful. What is it, pray?
A personal column is liable to contain anything from a lover's frantic appeal to his lady love to a ransom note.
In my profession, I've frequently found it an invaluable medium for contacting the underworld. Yes, now, here we are. Here's something. Dear me. Oh, dear, no. Today's column seems rather uninspired, I'm afraid.
May I examine it?
Of course, here you are.
Merci. If the lady who helped my little boy across the road at the corner of Threadwell Street and High Auburn last Wednesday at 4 will get in touch with Box 845, she will learn of something to her advantage. We can be more colorful than that in Paris, my friends.
Yes, I think we can do better than that, too. Yeah, look at this, will you?
The printer must have been half asleep when he set up the type for this advertisement. Will any gentleman interested in discussing cryptography and cipher writing please communicate with Box XQL 696, The Time?
Oh, I fail to find this message any more stirring than the preceding one.
You notice the execrable printing, don't you?
Indeed I do. It is all mixed up. The first word, will, starts with a capital W and a capital I. The second word, any, starts with a small a, and then has a capital N and Y. It is a shocking example of typography.
And when it occurs in a paper noted for its excellence in typesetting, one realizes that this is no mistake.
What do you mean, Holmes?
This is undoubtedly a code message.
Come now, my friend. I defy even you to make a mystery out of a printer's negligence.
I accept your challenge, my dear Leviard. If you recall, the Baconian bilateral cipher depends upon the use of two sizes of type. If we group the letters in units of 5, the arrangements of small and capital letters within the group should give us the message. Now, let's see. 2 capitals followed by 3 small gives us the letter H. Then 2 capitals, 1 small, 2 more. That gives us E. H.
I still think you are trying to make an adventure out of a mere printing accident.
No mere printing accident could so readily fall into one of the great traditional ciphers. Now, let's see. This message reads H-E-L, help, Q, too small, Q-U-I, quilter, help, quilter, L, too small and large, elms, help, quilter, elms, there it is, yes, penge, help, quilter, elms, penge.
Help, quilter, elms, penge. What does that mean?
Presumably that a man named Quilter, who lives at a house called the Elms, in the village of Penge, needs help.
Ah, I see it now. A helpless victim held prisoner. He smuggles out this message as a harmless personnel, with strict instructions that it be printed on this art form. He knows that the amateurs of cryptography, to whom it is addressed, will decipher this call for help. Et voilà.
Monsieur Villa, you seem ready to grant that adventure can exist in London, after all.
The advantage, my dear Watson, of a more mercurial temperament than we Englishmen possess. Well, Leviard, what about it? Shall we set off for Penge and rescue the ingenious Mr. Quilter from whatever dire fate awaits him in the elms?
I'm all impatience.
Splendid. Watson, I suppose you're too busy to join us.
Too busy?
Well, I'm in your practice. I'm sure that you have patience to attend to.
Yes, of course. Yes. As a matter of fact, I have 2 further visits to make today. One to a peppery old miser who has gout, and the other to a wealthy society woman who has acute attack of hypochondria, as they call it. To blazes with them, to hell with both of them. I'm coming with you, Holmes, if you want me.
Bravo, Watson. Then grab your hat and coat. The game's afoot.
Here you are, gents. The Helms Penge. Nice afternoon for a drive, wasn't it? Afraid it'll cost you 15 bob, though.
There's a sovereign for you. You can keep the change.
Oh, me, thank you, Governor. Top of the evening to you, gents.
So this is the Elms, eh? Quite a bit of land for such a modest neighborhood.
To call it the Elms seems remarkably inappropriate. I cannot see an elm tree in sight.
So you see, Leviard, the English have more imagination than you give them credit for.
Are you just going to walk up to the front door and knock, Holmes?
Why not? The direct approach is often the most satisfactory.
Oh, you disappoint me. I had hoped that perhaps you would adopt one of the disguises in which you are so adept, I am told.
Well, since it's unlikely that these people know me by sight, that's hardly necessary, is it? However, I trust that this little problem may reward you with some colorful highlights before we're through. Oh.
Great Scott. Revolver shots. They came from the house.
We are too late. Monsieur Quilter has been murdered.
No, I think not. You will observe that the next-door neighbor to the Elms was mowing his front lawn as we drove up. He is still engaged in the same occupation. Obviously, revolver shots attract little attention in this vicinity.
Mon Dieu, you mean that violence and sudden death are so common that they do not attract even the passing interest?
No, Villa. Even the British are not as phlegmatic as that.
Then what is the answer to those shots, Holmes?
Look, some member of this household is addicted to pistol practice. The fact that a shooting target is nailed to the back of that fence over there would further support the theory.
Well, that's rather ominous, in my opinion.
Well, here we are at the front door. Let's keep our wits about us anyway.
Are you carrying a revolver, Dr. Watson?
No, no stethoscope, I'm afraid. I was prepared for sickness when I left the house today, and not for crime.
I, too, am unarmed. How about you, Monsieur Holmes?
Only a magnifying glass, I'm afraid. Hardly a very lethal weapon.
Yes?
My friends and I were calling on Mr. Quilter.
Oh? Who are you?
My name is Sherlock Holmes, and these are my friends, Dr. Watson and Monsieur Leviat.
How do you do, madam? How do you do?
Is Mr. Quilter expecting
I don't know. We read his advertisement in the agony column of the Times today and came down here at once. Are you a relation of his?
I'm his niece.
Oh.
My name is Doris Faversham. Come in, won't you?
Miss Faversham, I suppose it is?
Yes, Doctor. It's Miss Faversham.
We had 3 revolver shots as we were walking up the driveway. They gave us quite a start.
Yes, mademoiselle. We were afraid that we might have arrived at the time of tragedy.
Yes, indeed.
Tragedy? Oh, my hobby is revolver shooting. I was doing some target practice in the back garden as you arrived.
Revolver shooting, Miss Faversham. How very interesting. I flatter myself that I'm something of a marksman myself.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, perhaps we can have a match. Won't you sit down?
Your challenge intrigues me, Miss Faversham, but before I accept it, I should like to see Mr. Quilter.
Well, Uncle George is paralyzed, you know. Spends all his time in a wheelchair. I'm not at all sure he'll see you.
Well, at least you can ask him, can't you, Miss Faversham?
It is his custom at this time of the day to take a little nap. Perhaps tomorrow...
Doris!
He's still awake.
Who's in?
Yes, Uncle. Some men have come to see you, Uncle.
Well, bring him in.
Follow me, gentlemen. Uncle, this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, and Monsieur
Leviat.
And Monsieur Leviat.
How do you do, sir? How do you do?
Sherlock Holmes, eh? Took you long enough to decipher my message and get here, didn't it? Your brother's a much faster worker, isn't he?
Oh, what makes you say that, Mr. Quilter?
Received this telegram from him at 11 o'clock this morning. Read it for yourself.
Well, what's it say, Holmes?
Suggest you consult my brother Sherlock, and it's signed Mycroft Holmes. Yes, Mr. Quilter, my brother is a much faster worker. Or shall we say that he suffers from the unfortunate habit of early rising. He undoubtedly read the agony column 3 hours before I did today.
Don't know about that, but I've been expecting you all day. I imagine you know why I inserted that advertisement.
Well, I had the impression that you were under some form of restraint, that you were in need of a rescue party, as it were.
Rubbish. My advertisement was a piece of subtle bait. The only person that could decipher the message would obviously be someone who knew the Baconian cipher.
Very logical deduction, Mr. Quilter.
You see, I'm convinced, as any sensible man should be, that the so-called Shakespearean plays were written by Sir Francis Bacon.
Oh, I see.
But I felt that it needed a clever man to prove the fact.
Mm-hmm.
I was sure that anyone who was able to decipher my message was the man I needed. And what will it take, Mr. Holmes, to do the job? I'm a rich man. Name your fee.
You mean to say that you inveigled Mr. Holmes down here just to do some research on the origin of Shakespeare's work?
Oh, you needn't look so shocked, Dr. Watson. My uncle has offered to pay him a handsome fee.
Well, what do you say, Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
It's an interesting subject for research. I'll concede that Ignatius Donnelly and others have proved almost beyond doubt that William Shakespeare of Stratford-on-Avon did not write the plays, but I greatly doubt that Lord Bacon did. I may devote my leisure and later years to some investigation on the subject, but in the meanwhile, Mr. Quilter, I'm afraid I'm much too busy to undertake such an assignment.
Oh, please yourself. Show the gentleman out, Doris.
Goodbye, sir.
Good day, sir.
Too bad you had this long drive down here for nothing,
Yes,
gentlemen.
I'm afraid I quite agree on it.
It would seem to me that your uncle has a distinct talent for practical joking, mademoiselle.
Uncle? Oh, Uncle never made a joke in his life. Mr. Holmes, now that you're here, perhaps you'd like to indulge in a little shooting match.
Thank you, Miss Faversham, but as I told your uncle, I'm a busy man. Good evening to you.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye.
Holmes, old fellow, you're losing your touch. You'd never made a blunder like this if I'd still been with you.
It is comforting for an aspiring detective like myself to know that the great Sherlock Holmes is fallible.
Yes, indeed.
Then am I to assume that I must continue the case alone?
What do you mean, continue the case? There isn't one. Quilter's in no danger.
He's in desperate danger.
What?
I'm only afraid I may be too late to save him.
But we have just spoken to the man.
Oh, no. Did neither of you notice the traces of fresh loam on the boots of that supposedly paralyzed man? Gentlemen, I fear the agony column has led us to murder.
You'll hear the rest of Dr. Watson's story in just a second. Time enough for me to mention that any meal is a better meal when it's served with a Petri dinner wine. If you're having chicken or fish, use Petri California Sauterne. Petri Sauterne is a subtle, delicately flavored white wine that looks and tastes like captured sunshine. If you're having a roast or chops or any kind of meat or meat dish, then by all means serve Petri California Burgundy. Petri Burgundy is a hearty, full-flavored red wine. One of the most delicious red wines you ever poured from a bottle. Why not get a bottle of each? Petri Burgundy and Petri Sauterne. Then, no matter what you have for dinner, you'll surely have the right wine, a Petri wine. Well, Doctor, why did you have to break off your story there?
Well, I had to break it off somewhere, Mr. Bartell, and that seemed to be the most exciting spot.
It certainly was. I was convinced that the great Sherlock Holmes had been fooled for once. What happened next?
Well, my boy, needless to remark, we did not get into a cab and go back to London, but let me pick up the story at the same place that I broke it off. As Holmes said...
Gentlemen, I fear the agony column has led us to murder.
Murder?
There was fresh earth on the soles of his boots, you say?
Distinct traces, proving that the man in the wheelchair was not paralyzed.
And that man, whoever he is, was impersonating Quilter to put us off the track.
And the real Quilter may have been killed, eh?
I'm afraid so. Let's stop here for a moment, shall we, while we make our plans. This hedge will hide us from the house in case they're watching from the windows. Now, this isn't a hard picture to reconstruct. There undoubtedly is, or was, a paralyzed Baconian scholar named Quilter. He managed to smuggle out that ingenious plea for help, but Mycroft's unfortunate telegram gave the game away.
I see it now. The people in there, holding him prisoner, forced him to reveal what he has done, eh?
What they may have done to him, heaven alone knows.
One of the criminals, guessing from the telegram that I might appear on the case, posed as the crippled Quilter.
What's our next move, Holmes?
Remember that singularly unattractive young lady skilled with a revolver? We must search the grounds as unobtrusively as we can.
Search the grounds? For what?
I can answer that question, Monsieur Doctor. We search for signs of the freshly turned earth of a grave.
We didn't find any traces of the poor devil's corpse, thank heaven.
No. A great disappointment.
Dear me, you're very bloodthirsty, Olivia. Hello. Look at the old fellow trimming the hedge over there.
Must be the gardener.
Let's have a chat with him, shall we? May be able to give us some information. Good evening to you.
Evening to you, gentlemen.
Really?
You work for Mr. Quilter?
That I do, sir. That I do.
Very fine work, too. I've seldom seen a better-kept garden.
I thank you, sir. I do pride myself in my work.
I wonder if you can help me.
Be glad to if I can, sir.
Did you see a telegraph boy deliver a message here this morning?
That I did, sir. The boy came here about 10 o'clock this morning. I was a clipping the front edge at the time.
And you've been working here ever since?
Yes, sir. Brought my lunch with me today and ate it in the garden.
Has anyone entered or left the house since that telegram was delivered?
No, sir. No one except yourself.
I see. I suppose you occasionally run errands for Mr. Quilter?
Not much these days, sir. The poor old gentleman keeps his chair in the house pretty much all the time, sir. I did run a message for him yesterday, though.
Oh, you did? Where to?
Well, sir, I was pruning the rose bushes under his study windows when the window opens and his hand comes out with a message. He told me to take it to the village office of the Times and to tell him to print it just the way it was. He looked kind of worried when he gave me the message, and he whispered to me, just as if he was afraid in his own house.
I'm much obliged to you. Here's 5 shillings for your trouble.
Oh, thank you, sir. Much obliged to you, I'm sure.
Good evening.
Good evening to you, gentlemen.
So that's how the message was smuggled out.
And no one has come to the house or left it since that telegram was delivered.
Therefore, Quilter or his body must still be inside that house.
We are going to search the house?
Yes, we are.
But we're not armed. They certainly are. They probably won't even let us in.
Yes, they will. We have an infallible key to entry, a woman's vanity. Come on.
Oh, so you came back. I thought you wouldn't be able to resist my challenge to a pistol match, Mr. Holmes.
Exactly, Miss Faversham. We had difficulty in finding a cab and decided to take a train back to London. It was an hour's wait, so I thought I'd accept your challenge.
Good. Come in. We'll go into the back garden.
Thank you.
Don't talk loudly. I think Uncle's asleep in the next room.
Don't bring anybody in here, Doris. I want to sleep.
All right, Uncle. This way, gentlemen.
If your uncle wants to sleep, seems a funny sort of lullaby.
Oh, well, he's used to that, Doctor. Here we are. This is the 50-yard range, Mr. Holmes. 3 shots. Best aggregate score wins. How much do you want to bet?
You name the stake. Name the stakes, Miss Faversham.
A sovereign?
Certainly. You take the first 3 shots?
Very well. I must just check that it's loaded. Yes, 6 bullets. All right, here I go.
Bravo, Miss Faversham. Splendid.
A bullseye and 2 winners. I can do better. Your turn, Mr. Holmes.
Doris, who are these men?
Friends of mine. I'll introduce you in a minute, Geoffrey. We're in the middle of a match at the moment. Your turn, Mr. Holmes.
The revolver, please.
Here you are.
Thank you.
You're sure you know how to handle a revolver?
Oh, quite sure, thanks.
Then why are you pointing it at me?
Because I want you to raise your hands above your head. You too, whatever your name is.
Doris, who are these men?
Put up your hands. I shan't hesitate to shoot, I assure you. Come on. That's it.
What in heaven's name do you think you're up to?
Finding out what became of the real Mr. Quilter. Search the man, Watson.
Right you are, Holmes.
VR, go into the house, will you, and search it.
Yes, but of course.
Hello, this man had a revolver on his hip.
Keep him covered with it.
Here, stand still, you.
Now, sir, who are you? From your resemblance to the man in the wheelchair that we saw earlier, I should say that you're a member of the same family.
We're both relatives of Mr. Quilter.
That's right. My name's Davies. I'm from the Australian branch of the family.
Relatives, yes. And doubtless you stood to inherit his estate in the event of Quilter's death. You moved in on this defenseless old man, terrorized him, lived off him, and finally found it necessary to destroy him.
You're talking absolute rubbish.
You're telling the truth and you know it. I can tell by your expressions.
Move back into the house, both of you. Come on. And keep your hands raised. All right, that's it. Come on. Lead the way into the study. The man posing as Mr. Quilter is still there. We heard him call out as we came in.
Yes, we might as well confront the 3 of them together. Yes, he's still seated in the chair. He seems to be asleep.
Via! Did you find anything?
Not a trace of the missing men, Monsieur Holmes.
Davis, what did you do with Mr. Quilter?
I didn't do anything with him.
Of course not. He's sitting there in that chair.
It's no good lying to us. We know that man's an imposter.
This is a fantastic situation. Nobody has left this house since the telegram arrived, and nobody has come to it, and yet Mr. Quilter has vanished.
Good Lord, how can he sleep through all this talk? You'd think he'd been drugged.
Villa! We're idiots. You are unquestionably the most promising detective in France, and some people have been kind enough to grant me a similar status in England, and yet my old friend Watson has just solved the case.
Nothing. Just too happy to... What? Solved it? Well, how?
Listen to the breathing of that man in the chair.
What?
He's been drugged. There sits the real Mr. Quilter, the persecuted victim who sent a Cipher message for help.
The man we spoke to earlier.
Was you, Mr. Davies, impersonating Quilter. After you'd received us, you took off your disguise, adopted an Australian accent, and then hid your drug victim by placing him in his own wheelchair, knowing that would be the last place we'd look for him.
And they would have kept him here until we had gone and then murdered him.
What a devilish plot.
Well, what have you got to say for yourselves?
It was Geoffrey's idea, not mine. I didn't have anything to do with it.
That's a dirty lie. You were in this as much as I am.
Oh, this is splendid, simply splendid. Please continue the argument. It'll make interesting evidence in court.
You can't take us into court.
Of course you can't. What's the charge? Quilter's still alive, isn't he?
When Mr. Quilter revives under Dr. Watson's ministrations, you will be charged, I have no doubt, with attempted murder, abduction, sequestration, duress, and probably several other counts. Monsieur Villard, if you will find us a cab, we'll take these miscreants to Scotland Yard. Our work is done.
Well, Doctor, that was a fine story. What are you fidgeting for?
Fidgeting? Well, I'm expecting a guest. I thought I heard him just now, the front door.
A guest? Now, you're being as mysterious as Mr. Holmes.
Oh, not quite. You see, come in.
Dr. Watson, how are you old rascal?
Gregory, my boy, it's great to see you again. Mr. Bartell, meet my friend, Mr. Gregory Hood.
Not the Gregory Hood.
Mr. Bartell, I like the way you say that.
Yes, Mr. Bartell, this is the Gregory Hood.
Mr. Bartell, if you listen to Dr. Watson, he'll lead you to believe I'm much more important than I am. I'm quite a simple person, really. I'm kind to dogs, just love little children, and always help old ladies cross the street. I also know how to make a fire by rubbing two sticks together.
Yes, and unlike my old friend Holmes, you pretend to know very little about criminals and crime, and yet you're one of America's outstanding criminologists.
So I've heard.
A hobby, Mr. Bartell, a hobby. My real business is importing, headquarters San Francisco. Need any old masters? Perhaps I can sell you a nice piece of jade, or would you rather have a bit of old Balinese sculpture?
No, wait a minute. This is all a little too fast for me.
Yes, you learn that Gregory is a little too fast for everybody. But, Mr. Bartell, I'm sure you'll get to know Mr. Hood a good deal better. You see, as I've told you, I've always wanted to take a trip back to England, and now I have a chance to do so.
But, Doctor, won't I see you again? What about our stories?
Oh, I shall be back in the fall, but meanwhile, I've asked Mr. Gregory Hood to get together with you at this time every week and tell you some of his experiences.
Which, of course, makes me feel very important.
Mr. Hood, as you know, has been involved in many famous cases dealing in crime. His importing business and his hobby criminology are a strange combination. I learned that he keeps a diary of these cases, and it's a fascinating book. The Case Book of Gregory Hood.
The Case Book of Gregory Hood. Sounds intriguing.
Intriguing? It certainly is.
Thank you.
Well, then I can tell all our friends, be sure to listen next week at the same time and every Monday night through the summer to The Case Book of Gregory Hood. Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Sign of Four. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. A pretty nice turn of events. And I think a fitting last bow for Basil Rathbone here. This is very well written and had some nice twists. I particularly liked where Holmes used the target shooting as a pretense to get the drop on the criminals. I've never quite seen anything like it, but it sure makes a lot of sense. This episode also, at the end, it introduced what was going to be just a summer series, The Case Book of Gregory Hood, which starred Gail Gordon. While most other detectives that made it to air were from books like Sherlock Holmes or Nick Carter, Gregory Hood was actually from the minds of Green and Boucher. It's a pretty good series, and Harry Bartell comes in and hawks Petri wine just like he does on Sherlock Holmes. But, of course, there was not going to be a return of Sherlock Holmes, at least not on the Mutual Network, and not without star Basil Rathbone. Rathbone was tired of the character. After 14 movies, 217 radio shows, he was ready to move on. Rathbone would return to the stage, and in 1948 would win a Tony Award for his role in The Heiress. But Hollywood's success outside of Sherlock Holmes would be elusive. And in fact, he wasn't entirely done playing Sherlock Holmes when this radio show went off the air and when Dressed to Kill was released. He would play Sherlock Holmes on television in an episode of Suspense, The Adventure of the Black Baronet, which is sadly lost, and he would work on doing a stage show of Sherlock Holmes, reuniting with Nigel Bruce, who unfortunately died as he was rehearsing. I think part of the reason it was so hard for him to, Rathbone, to redefine himself is partially his age. When he left Sherlock Holmes, he was 54 years old, and this had probably been his one role outside of the swashbuckling villains he'd played earlier in his career. And with Rathbone, I think the thing that bothered him about the Holmes role is it was all he was remembered for. But then again, at least he was remembered. While he was Hollywood's greatest swordsman, a war hero, a Tony Award winner, accomplished in so many different types of roles, no one would know any of that if we didn't first know that he played Sherlock Holmes. Alright, well that'll do it for today. Well, before we do get started, I want to encourage you, as you're making your travel plans for the holidays and for the new year, remember JohnnyDollarAir.com, which is powered by Priceline. It gives you great options by allowing you to either name your own price or search from published fares. Plus, part of your purchase goes to help support the great detectives of old-time radio. So remember, JohnnyDollarAir.com. Well, let's get into today's episode, The Jack Madigan Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar. Dollar, my name is Struve. Struve Bail Bond and Insurance Agency. State, federal, and immigration, all forms of surety bonds and insurance.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm sorry, I don't need me.
No, that's not the point. I need you to the tune of saving me $50,000.
How does that work?
I made bond for two men that were subpoenaed for a federal investigation. They skipped out, and I've got to find them.
Who's mixed up in this investigation?
A fellow by the name of Jack Madigan is the big shot. You know him?
I've read about him. Enough to advise you to give up. If he doesn't want him found, the chances are they won't be. Alive, anyway.
No, it's not as bad as that. Look, I came all the way from New York. This is worth a lot to me. Can't I talk to you about it?
All right. Come up to my apartment. Maybe we can work out a deal.
Edmund O'Brien in the transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance investigator, yours truly,
Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, Hartford, Connecticut, to the Struve Bail Bond and Insurance Agency in New York City. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Jack Madigan matter. Expense account item 1-250, phone to New York for purposes of checking your reputation. I learned that you, Mr. Struve, were by no means above reproach, but decided that if a federal court trusted your agency, I would at least hear you out when you arrived, which you did at 1 p.m.
Mr. Dollar?
Come on in, Mr. Struve.
Thanks for sparing me your time. I'm in a mess.
Sit down. You should have known better than to make bond for anybody that was going to testify against Jack Madigan.
There was nothing I could do about it.
Who forced you into it?
Madigan? I've done business with some of his friends before, so he came to me this time and said, will I do it? The way he said it, there was nothing else I could do.
Madigan stood the expense himself?
Sure. He wanted them where he could get his hands on them, and looks like he did. Or they took a run out.
They didn't have to accept bond. They could have stayed in protective custody if they were afraid of him.
They had to if Madigan told them to. The point is they're gone. Unless I can prove they're dead or find them before they're due in court, I forfeit the $50,000. $25,000 apiece. I've got to do something.
Why'd you come to me?
I told you I've got to do something.
It's a federal problem. You operate in New York, and New York has plenty of hungry private detectives, I hear, and a fair-sized herd of policemen.
I'll tell you why I came to you. The New York cops are busy enough, and besides, to them, these witnesses are just two names on a long list of missing persons. And as for private dicks, I could never be sure that one wouldn't want to make a deal with Madigan and make more money not finding them than I'd be paying to find them. You get the point?
What makes you think you can trust me?
Well, you were mentioned by a fellow from one of the insurance companies I sell for. They tell me you're straight. except for padding your expense account here and there.
Oh, that's slander. Now, who told you that?
Don't make any difference. What's a little padding? I want to hire you.
Okay, Mr. Stroll, you've hired me.
Great.
Now, who are these missing witnesses?
Nippy Bruno is one. Real name's Joe. The other is Max Krause. I've got their addresses. Next of kin, what they look like, and so on. Yeah, I got it all in this envelope here.
Okay. Oh, there's one other thing. I want a retainer. $2,500.
What's that for?
The favor going to work for a man I don't quite trust.
Well, $2,500. That's pretty steep, man.
You don't have to pay it. It's up to you.
Yes. Well, I can't get it till tomorrow.
That'll be fine. A cashier's check. When I get it, I'll see what I can do for you. I didn't expect the check to arrive, but it did. Special messenger the next afternoon. Expense account item 2, $12.50, transportation from Hartford to New York City. Expense account item 3, $23.85, dinner and drinks for a Herald American reporter who was more familiar with Jack Madigan than I. His statement enclosed.
A lot of things have been written and said about Madigan by a lot of people, including me. None of us really know anything about him, how much power he has, where he got it, what his private life is, if any. These witnesses being missing isn't even news. People who got in his way have been dropping out of sight for years. Jim Schwartz, Big Tom Green, Woody South, just to name a few. I'd keep that in mind if I were you.
Expense account item 4, $180, cab fare. That same address to an address on 79th. The apartment of Nippy Bruno's next of kin, a sister, stage name, Vivian Brown.
Good evening, sir.
Hello. Is Vivian Brown in?
What shall I say is calling?
My name is Dollar.
Dollar?
She doesn't know me. Tell her I have some news about her brother.
Come in, please. This way, please. Miss Brown is dressing to go out. I'll ask if she'll see you. Miss Brown?
Yes? What is it?
Mr. Dollar is here to see you.
Who?
He says he has news about your brother.
Tell him to wait. I'll get a robe on.
Can I take your hat?
Thanks.
Please sit down. Miss Brown will be right out.
What was your name? I didn't get it.
Dollar, Johnny Dollar.
What makes you think I'd be interested in any news about Brother Nippy?
Well, the mention of him got me in here.
My butler doesn't slam the door on anybody until I tell him to. What brought you here?
I'm looking for your brother.
Then you've definitely come to the wrong place. Why should you be looking for him?
I'm being paid to. The man who put up $25,000 bond for him wants to know where he is.
I don't get it. What bond?
You don't wear innocence very well, Angel, but I'll go along with the gag.
It's no gag, and I can do without your info.
Your brother's due in court in 2 weeks to help the federal men investigate Jack Madigan. He seems to have dropped out of sight. Do you know where he is?
No. I haven't seen much of him in the past few years. He doesn't approve of me, and I don't approve of him. Does that answer your question?
It brings another one to mind. He seemed to think enough of you to use your name on his bond request papers. How about that?
All right, Peeper. I was only trying to do it easy for you. Red!
I heard it. You walked into something, Peeper.
I usually do. But I'm glad to see you in character. That automatic makes more sense than that phony butler act did.
Stand up. Better see if he's carrying anything, Vivian.
Okay. You're a good boy now.
Until you try to pawn my wallet, I will.
It's all right. He's safe.
You can sit down, Dollar.
Huh? What now?
He should be here in 20 minutes. I'll go back to my room.
Sure, go ahead.
What's the rough stuff, Red?
Hasn't been rough. But you don't know how close you came to getting your head blown off buzzing this door. It's liable to happen to the next one that does. Light yourself a smoke. We got about 20 minutes to wait.
So we waited 20 minutes.
Vivian came back into the room in a low-cut number that was a good choice for her sullen brunette attractiveness. It made her look softer. But the few remarks she passed weren't only icy. They could have come from a longshoreman. I was waiting for her brother to come in. That would have made sense. What did come in made none at all. It was Jack Madigan.
Hi, Jack. Come on in and see what's found me.
Well, what do you know about this?
How are you, Jack?
Fine, thanks. What are you doing with that pistol?
We wanted to play it safe.
Yeah, he's a detective of some kind. He was hired by that Stroll to find Nippy.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? What do you have to say for yourself, my boy?
Matter of fact, I'm speechless, Madigan.
Oh?
How's that? I thought I'd have to find you. I didn't expect you to find me. Yet, at least. And here.
What's so strange about that?
You and the sister of the missing witness? Maybe not so strange as that.
Shut up. Keep your remarks to yourself, you two-bit heel.
Yes. Lord. Who makes me a highball? And you, put that gun away and go help him with the ice.
You say so, Jack.
Of course I say so. Go on.
I'm sorry, Jack. He's been needling me for half an hour.
Now to take her across to my knee, waving that gun in your face. What for? Anybody knows you can't fire a gun in these apartment houses without causing a ruckus. What's your name?
Dollar.
And the man he Stroll hired to try Lippy.
And the other man, Kraut.
I'll tell you what to do. You go back to Stroll and tell him the boys are all right.
Oh, let's not be childish, shall we? In what river are they all right now?
See here, there's no need to take such a pessimistic view. I realize the press has given me a reputation for violence, but I don't deserve it. There's no reason for me to want to harm those boys. I'm not afraid of their testimony. I'm counting on it. Sure. And straight testimony, no perjury this time. Why, I've already talked to those federal men. I'm cleaning the slate this time, telling everything, and let the chips fall where they may.
What kind of stuff is this?
The truth. I'm tired. I've been at sword's point with the police and my government long enough. I've been offered certain little leniency, and I'm going to accept. It's been later than I thought for a long time. I'm through.
You know, this is almost funny.
I'm dead serious. You go back and tell that police coroner tout that the boys are all right.
Where are they?
I can't tell you that. I've got them under cover for their own good. Now, Dollar, don't go off half-cocked. A lot of heads are going to fall after the three of us have finished this federal catechism. If you think you're the only one looking for them, you must be a stranger in town. You're trailing the pack.
Well, if this is all I get from you, I've had enough.
You'll drop it?
If I don't find them before you're due in court, I will.
What do you want, son?
Money? I got some, thanks.
I don't like to hear that. I suppose it takes a lot of guts to be a hero, but it sure doesn't take much brain. Remember that.
I can leave?
Of course you can leave. Because I think you're going to talk this over with yourself and come up with an important decision.
I did talk it over with myself, but not until I found a cab stand on the corner and turned around. A quarter of a block behind me, I could make out the figure of Red, the so-called butler. Expense account item 5, $20, fare and tip to a driver who saw to it that our cab wasn't followed. When I felt reasonably safe, I gave him the address of the second missing man, Max Kraut. I didn't know what I expected to find there, other than an empty flat with possibly a lead of some kind. There was a trace of light showing under the door. Come on in, Dollar. Red. I didn't expect a butler in a place like this. Come on in. Why didn't you use your head? Jack gave you a chance to. Maybe I should have. What are you doing here? I live here. You trying to tell me that you're Max Krause? I'm Max Krause. And now I've got to do something about you. Can you prove that you're Max Krause? Why should I have to prove it? Go ahead. Think what you want to. You've got brains. Reach up behind you and snap off the light. Don't make a play for the gun, Dollar. What are your plans? Madigan wants you put away until after the investigation. Come on. Back door's closed.
You can tell Madigan for me that this isn't going to work. If I drop out of sight for 2 weeks, somebody's going to get on the trail. It leads right back to Madigan.
This way. I got a car in a garage down the street.
That's him. Get down! Max, let me see.
Sure. Now you believe him. Let me get your coat. Get away. I hate your
We'll return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Once a year, the community chest comes knocking at your door, seeking your help. Giving to this worthy cause eliminates many separate appeals, which would be more costly in money, time, and effort. So when you give, make sure you give enough to cover the many campaigns the community chest includes. Give generously. Give today. Now, with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
When the windows in the buildings around me started slamming open, I left the scene of the killing and carried with me a whole new set of thoughts on the Jack Madigan matter. None of them were good, but the worst was the fact that the description I'd gotten of Max Krause would in no way fit the dead man I now thought was Max Krause. Expense account item 6, cab fare to your address, Mr. Struve.
It's 11 at night, Mr.
Never mind what time it is. Find a chair and sit in it before you land on the floor.
What's got into you?
Sit down. Who paid you to hire me?
What did you say?
Who did?
Paid me to hire you? What kind of a question is that?
Answer it.
Well, nobody did. It was my investment. Who would protect it but me? What's the matter with you?
Come here, look at it. Read it right there. I want to hear you.
Max Krause, age 34, 5'11", 170 pounds, swarthy complexion, black hair, black eyes.
Well, all right, why did you give me a phony description?
Phony?
The Max Krause I found had red hair and blue eyes.
I don't get it, none of this. What are you talking about?
Krause is dead. He was killed because I didn't know who he was and drew him out into the open.
When did this happen?
It happened. I was picked up the minute I hit town and followed. Who else but you knew what train I was arriving on? And the hotel where I was stopping.
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I don't think you got right to jump at these conclusions. I hired you in good faith. Well, if you don't like the job, then quit.
Not for a while. I stand a good chance of being picked up for questioning in that killing. I don't like that. I want an out. I want to know how it happened. From here, it looks like you sold out to somebody and hired me to put the finger on Krause. I don't like that either.
Let me tell you something. If I was crazy enough to do a thing like that, I'd do it so nobody could prove I
What
did.
about the phony description?
It may have been a mistake. I don't know how it happened.
I think we'd better find out. And let me know when you come up with a story.
Hello?
This is Johnny Dollar.
Oh. Where are you?
Not far from your place. Is Madigan there?
No.
Where is he?
I don't know. He got a phone call and left right afterwards.
Was the call about Krause?
You wouldn't tell me. What about Max?
He was killed.
Oh, I knew it was something awful. I could tell by his face. I've been scared to death ever since he left, and I didn't know why.
I'll call back later and see if he's in.
Mr. Dollar, I have no right to ask this, but there's something I want to tell you. Could you come up?
Can't you tell me over the phone?
Oh, won't you come up?
You alone?
Yes, I'm alone.
Okay. I'll take a chance. It'll be about 10 minutes. It was a 5-minute walk, and I noticed that New York streets seemed to be quieter than usual. Inside the building, I walked the 2 flights up to save the noise my arrival would have created by way of the elevator. I listened a few minutes outside a door without hearing anything and took a plunge.
I had the feeling you'd change your mind and not come.
I almost did.
nobody here.
When did Madigan say he'd be back?
He didn't. He didn't say anything.
I have a funny feeling about Krause's death. But except for my getting mixed up in this mess, it was more Madigan's fault than your fault than it was mine. Why didn't he tell me it was Krause who was here? If he told me that, I probably would have believed the rest of his pitch.
Oh, I don't know. Nobody really knows anything about Jack.
Not even you?
Nobody.
You put 3 men on their way to federal court to sing and a few hundred wanting to stop him. The lid is going to blow. What'd you want to tell me?
I want to tell you where my brother is.
Huh? After what happened to Krause, do you think that's wise?
I have to say it. I'm in it, too. I think Jack knew these things were going to happen, even about you showing up.
Knowing about it or planning it?
I know it sounds impossible, but I keep remembering things he said about how he'd have the government men eaten out of his hand. He was bargaining for leniency.
He told me, but why are you ratting on him?
Because Jack doesn't care about anybody but himself. One of the threats to keep him from testifying was that I'd be kidnapped. Huh. If he'd known that Max would be killed, he'd have let him take me, too.
You think he did know?
He hadn't let Max out of his apartment for almost a month. Tonight he ordered him to go. I think he wants us killed, so it'll make it look that much more dangerous for him. Does it sound too crazy?
Well, not exactly, but it's hard to prove.
I know that. And I did a foolish thing after he left. I called my brother Nippy and told him all this. I don't know what he thought, but I tried to call him again, and I don't get any answer.
Where is he?
He's been staying with Jack. It's over on Lexington, Brighton Arms, apartment 302.
That's cozy. How afraid of kidnapping are you?
Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how I can stand staying here and waiting. Where can I go?
Get a coat. I'll put you in my hotel room. Expense account item 6, $10. Tip to the hotel detective to see that she stayed in the room. Item 7, 120 cab fare to Jack Madigan's address. I dropped my taxi a half block down and walked the rest of the way. What slowed me was the sight of a couple of prowl cars parked in front of the building. And even at that time of night, a small group of the morbid in a scattered circle on the sidewalk. I saw the body, but didn't move close enough to recognize it. Hey, what happened?
Huh? Oh, a shooting.
Anybody know who it is?
The whole country will in the morning. He was due for a big federal probe. That's Jack Madigan. Where were you, Fred? Taking in another of them westerns, I suppose. There was more shooting right here than the whole picture.
Hey, pardon me.
Yeah?
When did it happen, do you know?
Not exactly. They've been here quite a while, though, about an hour anyway. Can't find a medical examiner, and they can't do a thing about moving them till they do. Hey, Fred, wait till the editorials tomorrow night.
You got back in a hurry. What's the matter?
Your theory has just been riddled. Madigan's been killed.
I don't believe...
That's what the on-the-spot experts say.
I was wrong about him. What about Nippy?
I don't think your brother would have been there.
Were they the same ones that shot Max?
No.
How do you know?
Cars were parked solid at the curb, and Madigan was too close to them. He couldn't have been shot from the street like Max was. Do you think Nippy would go to your place?
No, he wouldn't go there. That'd be the first place they'd look.
The first place who'd look?
I don't know why I said that. Yes, I do. You're thinking the same thing, aren't you? That I told him what I was afraid of and warned him.
That crossed my mind. But I don't care who I can send in for Madigan's killing as long as I can go home. You seem to be the closest suspect.
You're not serious.
You've given yourself a motive. As far as I know, you were with him last.
I wasn't. He left the apartment.
If that's true, you've got nothing to worry about.
What do you mean? What do you want me to do?
Go with me and we'll both make a statement to the police.
You think I'm afraid to, don't you?
I don't know what to think about you.
Yes, you do. Because you found me in a mess like this, you think I'm as rotten as everybody else. I haven't been. But now I will be to protect myself.
Well, how badly do you need protection?
I know how the police are. They're just like you. They don't care either who they pull in for Jack's death. You tell me to go with you and make a statement. The police would love that. They'd love to count the whole thing off to jealousy or being afraid of Jack, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they?
You don't touch me. I don't care what they'd like.
Well, they would. It'd be much better to take me than to be laughed at because a star witness was killed right under their noses.
We can call them and find out.
No. It's easier to be rotten. I'll give you my brother. He is at my place.
How do you know?
I talked to him on the phone. He said he'd wait there until he heard from me again.
Okay. I'll go over there. But I want you to come with me.
Why? Haven't I done enough? Why do I have to see him?
Come on. I don't want to lose you in case Nippy isn't there. I'll do it. Give me the key. Vivian? Answer.
Yes, Nippy.
It's going to work, Vivian. There's going to be a... Who's he? That insurance dick? That's right, Nippy. What are you doing here? Why'd you bring him?
He made me do it.
I asked her to make a choice between giving herself up for Madigan's killing or giving me you.
Nippy.
Put the gun away, Nippy. You've done enough. Is what he says true?
He made me do it. He would have taken me to the police. You know what they would have done to me. But it's all right, Nippy. You can still work it out.
Get away from me. She's wrong. You couldn't work it out, but you may do yourself some good by giving yourself up. Why did you do this, Vivian? Did you want to get rid of me, too?
Oh, don't say that. You don't have
What
to
are
let
you
him...
going to do if you get rid of me? Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to find more Jack Madigans for you to play with?
Nippy, don't.
Who's going to do the job for you when you get fed up and afraid to tear yourself loose?
You don't have to let him take you, Nippy. I know you could take care of it when he got here.
Is she worth it, Nippy? There wouldn't be a chance to count me off to a gang killing.
You don't have to be afraid of him.
I'm not.
Then take him and get away.
Not him. I'm afraid of you, Vivian. You're going with me. Stay away from her.
Nippy, let go.
And stop fighting. I wouldn't hurt you.
You will. Don't, Nippy. Let me go.
Now, watch your dollar. Don't try it. Let go. Let go. Vivian, get it. I should have let him take it. Give me the police. Where can I find... Oh, there you are, Struve.
Good morning, Mr. Dollar. I read about it in the paper. They're holding the girl?
Yeah, as accessory. And I wouldn't advise your going her bail.
No, I certainly won't. I've had trouble enough with this group.
You know, you didn't make it easy for me with that phony description.
Yeah, I know that description. It was given to me by Madigan's boys. I should have checked it. But don't worry, a mistake like that won't happen again.
None of your mistakes will happen to me again.
Huh?
You'll understand what I mean, Struve, when you get my bill. Expense account item 8, same as item 2. Item 9, miscellaneous, $2,500. Expense account total, $2,720. Remarks? I'm holding my retaining fee until this matter is settled. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien may soon be seen in the Paramount Pictures production Warpath. Featured in tonight's cast were Sidney Miller, John Daner, Clayton Post, Jeanette Nolan, and John McIntyre. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Trevor inviting you to join us next week at this time when we will again bring you Edmund O'Brien as
yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
How's for trying to sing it again tonight? $5,000 in cold hard cash and $10,000 in fine prizes are waiting for the CBS listener who can solve the Phantom Voice mystery. Dan Seymour will be on hand with those coast-to-coast phone calls, and Alan Dale, Eugenie Baird, Bob Howard, and the Riddlers will be making the music. And remember, there's many a fine prize for solving the tuneful little riddle songs that lead to the Phantom Voice mystery. It's an hour of fun and music to entertain you and perhaps pay off. Every Saturday night on most of these same CBS stations, here's Sing It Again. And now stay tuned for Vaughn Monroe's Caravan, which follows immediately on most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, where Hopalong Cassidy rides every Saturday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome you to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio and our 300th episode special. As always, feel free to send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. Today's episode of the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio is brought to you through my book, Tales of the Dim Night. It's available from Splashdown Books. You can go to greatdetectives.net. Available as an ebook for $4.25. Go to greatdetectives.net or dimnight.com for even more purchasing options. Well, The Man Who Was Thursday from the Mercury Theater on the Air is this week's production. This actually concluded the summer production of the Mercury Theater, though it would be moving to a new night, and would a few months later have its famous War of the Worlds broadcast. We, of course, came to the Mercury Theater for the first time a year ago, and it's great to be back for another masterful performance by Orson Welles. And the story is quite unique. The Man Who Was Thursday is a mystery story, and is often considered an early work of detective fiction, but it's also often considered fantasy. It's hard to define, it's hard to explain, but it definitely provokes plenty of thought. And Mr. Welles will address this a little bit in his opening. One thing that he does make reference to is that the story was set in the age of the anarchist. Today, while anarchism is not thought of as a positive thing, it's not really thought of as a big threat. But in the early part of the 20th century, the anarchists were quite dangerous and quite violent. In fact, it was an anarchist that killed the President of the United States, William McKinley, in 1901. So in the period of The Man Who Was Thursday, when this was released in 1906, the anarchists were kind of like we would imagine Al-Qaeda today. Unfortunately, every recording of this play that I found has the first paragraph or so of Mr. Wells's introduction cut off, as well as the opening theme music and the CBS announcer. Thankfully, I have found a script, which means I can go ahead and read you the first paragraph that Mr. Welles spoke, and then we'll head out to the Mercury Theater to hear the rest from Orson Welles. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. G.K.C. Gilbert Keith Chesterton, greatly articulate Roman convert and liberal, has been dead now for 2 years. For a unique brand of common sense enthusiasm, for a singular gift of paradox, for a deep reverence and a high wit, and most of all for a free and shamelessly beautiful English prose, he will never be forgotten. And here now is Mr. Orson Welles with The Man Who Was Thursday, here on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio.
Wonderful to be famous. According to the story, that's what the young lady said to the fat man, the fabulously fat, the fantastic, the famous fat man, when he took her to lunch at a fashionable restaurant and everybody turned and stared. Tell me, she said, do people always recognize you? Does everybody always know who you are? Well, my dear, said Mr. Chesterton, if they don't, they ask. Mr. Chesterton's The Man Who Was Thursday is a little like that. Roughly speaking, it's about anarchists. It was written, remember, in the boom of bomb-throwing in those radical, irresponsible days of the nihilists. And roughly speaking, it's a mystery story. It can be guaranteed that you will never guess the solution until you get to the end. It is even feared that you may not guess it then. You may never guess what the man who is thirsty is about, but definitely, if you don't, you'll ask. I am Gabriel Syme. I am the man who was thirsty. That particular evening, if it is remembered for nothing else, will be remembered in that place for its strange sunset. It looked like the end of the world. It may be remembered by others, too, because it marked the first appearance in the place of the second poet of Saffron Park. For a long time, a red-haired revolutionary had reigned without a rival. It was upon the night of the sunset that I, Gabriel Syme, ended his solitude.
Mr. Syme, you say you're a poet of law. I say you are a contradiction in terms. An artist is identical with an anarchist.
Mr. Gregory, it is things going right that is poetical. Our digestions, for instance, going sacredly and silently right. The most poetical thing in the world is not being sick.
Really, Mr. Syme, the examples you choose...
I beg your pardon, Mr. Gregory. I forgot we had abolished all conventions.
You don't expect me to revolutionize society on this lawn?
Oh, no, I don't, but I suppose that if you were serious about your anarchism, that is exactly what you would do.
Don't you think, then, that I'm serious about my anarchism?
I beg your pardon.
Am I not serious about my anarchism?
I strolled away and left Gregory, but with surprise and with a curious pleasure, I found a red-headed young lady still in my company. It was Rosamond, Gregory's sister.
Mr. Syme, do the people who talk like you and my brother often mean what they say? Do you mean what you say now?
My dear Miss Gregory, when you say thank you for the salt, do you mean what you say? No. When you say the world is round, do you mean what you say? No, it is quite true, but you don't mean it.
Is he really an anarchist, then?
Only in that sense I speak of, or if you prefer it, in that nonsense.
He wouldn't really use bombs or that sort of thing.
Oh, good Lord, no. That has to be done anonymously. I strolled with her to a seat in the corner of the garden, and I defended respectability with violence and exaggeration. I grew passionate in my praise of tidiness and propriety. All the time there was a smell of lilac around me, and once I heard, very faintly in some distant street, a barrel organ begin to play, and it seemed to me that my heroic words were moving to a tiny tune from under or beyond the world. In the wild events which were to follow, this girl had no part at all. I never saw her again until all my tale was over. And yet, in some indescribable way, she kept recurring like a motive in music through all those mad adventures afterwards. And the glory of her strange hair ran like a red thread through those dark and ill-drawn tapestries of the night. For what followed was so improbable that it might well have been a dream. When I left the party and went out into the starlit street, I found Gregory waiting for me.
Mr. Syme.
Mr. Gregory.
This evening you succeeded in doing something rather remarkable. You did something to me that no man has ever succeeded in doing before. You irritated me.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
There is only one way by which that insult can be erased, and that way I choose. I am going at the possible sacrifice of my life and honor to prove to you that you were wrong in what you said.
In what I said?
You said I was not serious about being an anarchist. Mr. Syme, may I ask you to swear by whatever gods or saints your religion involves that you will not reveal what I am now going to tell you to any son of Adam, and especially not to the police? Will you swear that? If you will consent to burden your soul with a vow that you should never make and a knowledge you should never dream about, I will promise you in return...
You will promise me in return...
I will promise you a very entertaining evening.
Your offer is far too idiotic to be declined. You say that a poet is always an anarchist. I disagree, but I hope at least that he is always a sportsman. Permit me here and now to swear that as a Christian and to promise as a good comrade and a fellow artist that I will not report any of this, whatever it is, to the police. And now, what is it?
I think that we will take a cab.
A cab pulled up before a particularly dreary and greasy beer shop, we seated ourselves in a close and dim sort of bar parlor at a stained wooden table with one wooden leg.
Mr. Syme, if in a few moments this table begins to turn around a little, please don't put it down to the champagne. I don't wish you to do yourself an injustice.
Well, if I'm not drunk, I'm mad, but I trust I can behave like a gentleman in either situation. May I smoke?
Certainly. Try one of mine.
I took the cigar and started to light it. Almost before I had begun, the table at which we were sitting began to revolve, first slowly and then rapidly.
You mustn't mind it. It's a kind of screw.
Quite so, a kind of screw. How simple that is. The next moment, we two, with our chairs and tables, shot down through the floor as if the earth had swallowed us. Gregory led me down a low, vaulted passage, at the end of which was a heavy iron door.
Who is it? Mr. Joseph Chamberlain.
It was obviously some kind of passport. We stepped into a queer steel chamber whose walls were hung with dubious and dreadful shapes, things that looked like the bulbs of iron plants or the eggs of iron birds. They were bombs.
And now, my dear Mr. Syme, now we are quite cozy, so let us talk properly. You said you were quite certain I was not a serious anarchist. Does this place strike you as being serious?
It does seem to have a moral under all of its gaiety, but tell me, you have a heavy iron door. You cannot pass it without submitting to the humiliation of calling yourself Mr. Chamberlain. You surround yourself with steel instruments which make the place, if I may say so, more impressive than homelike. Why, after taking all this trouble to barricade yourself in the bowels of the earth, do you then parade your whole secret by talking anarchism to every silly woman in Saffron Park?
The answer's simple. When first I became one of the new anarchists, I tried all kinds of respectable disguises. But at last I went in despair to the president of the Central Anarchist Council, who is the greatest man in Europe.
Oh, what's his name?
You wouldn't know it. That is his greatness. He looked at me. You want a safe disguise, do you? I nodded. Why then, dress up as an anarchist, you fool. I took his advice and have never regretted it. I preached blood and murder to those women day and night, and by heaven they would let me wield their perambulators.
You took me in. What do you call this tremendous president of yours?
We call him Sunday. You see, there are 7 members of the Central Anarchist Council, and they're named after the days of the week. He is called Sunday by some of his admirers, Bloody Sunday. It's curious that you should mention the matter, because this very night we've called a meeting to elect a successor to the post of Thursday. And I don't mind telling you that it's almost a settled thing that I am to be Thursday.
Gregory, I gave you a promise before I came to this place. Would you give me, for my own safety, a little promise of the same kind?
Promise?
Yes, a promise. I swore before God that I would not tell your secret to the police. Will you swear by humanity or whatever beastly thing you believe in that you will not tell my secret to the anarchists?
Your secret? Have you got a secret?
Yes, I have a secret. Will you swear?
Yes, I will swear not to tell the anarchists anything you tell me. But look sharp, they'll be here in a couple of minutes.
Well, Gregory, I don't know how to tell you the truth more shortly than by saying that your expedient of dressing up as an aimless poet is not confined to you or your president. We've known the dodge for some time at Scotland Yard.
What do you say?
Yes, Gregory, I'm a police detective.
Mr. Joseph Chamberlain? Mr. Joseph Chamberlain.
It was repeated twice, and thrice, and then 30 times. And the crowd of Joseph Chamberlains, a solemn thought could be heard, trampling down the corridor. Here are your friends, Gregory.
Comrade Gregory, I suppose this man is the delegate?
The fact is, comrade, I have been specially sent here to see that you show a due observance of Sunday.
Well, comrade, I suppose we'd better give you a seat in the meeting.
Gregory, I could see, was in an agony of diplomacy.
Yes, I think it is time we began. The tug is waiting on the river. I move that Comrade Buttons take the chair.
Second the motion!
All those in favor?
Aye!
Carried. Comrade Buttons.
Comrades, we all lament the sad decease of the heroic worker who occupied the post of Thursday in the Central Council until last week. He organized the great dynamite coup of Brighton, which under happier circumstances ought to have killed everybody on the pier. Upon you tonight, comrades, it devolves to choose out of the company present the man who shall be called Thursday. If any comrade suggests a name, I will put it to the vote.
I move that Comrade Gregory be elected Thursday.
Does anyone second?
Second the motion.
Before I put the matter to the vote, I will call on Comrade Gregory to make a statement.
Gregory rose. He must have figured out that his best chance was to make a softened and ambiguous speech, such as would leave in my mind the impression that the Brotherhood was a very mild affair after all.
My friend!
There it is back there.
It is deep under the earth that we, the persecuted, are permitted to assemble as the Christians assembled in the catacombs. Suppose we seem as shocking as the Christians because we are really as harmless as the Christians. Suppose we seem as mad as the Christians because we are really as meek.
I am not meek.
Comrade Witherspoon tells us that he is not meek. How little he knows himself. We are simple, as they were simple. Look at Comrade Witherspoon. We are modest, as they were modest. Look at me. We are merciful. I say we are merciful as the early Christians were merciful. Yet, this did not prevent their being accused of eating flesh. Now, we do not eat human flesh.
Shame! Why not?
Comrade Witherspoon is anxious to know why nobody eats him. In our society, at any rate, which loves him sincerely, which is founded on love.
No, down with love!
Which is founded on love. There will be no difficulty about the aims which we shall pursue as a body, or which I should pursue were I chosen as the representative of that body. Does anyone oppose the election of Comrade Gregory?
Yes,
Comrades!
Who are you?
Gabriel Syme!
Comrade Syme! Comrade Syme, the special delegate.
Have we come here for this? Comrades, we line these walls with weapons and bar that door with death. Lest anyone should come and hear Comrade Gregory saying to us, "Be good and you will be happy. Honesty is the best policy and virtue is its own reward." Comrade Gregory has told us that we are not the enemies of society. But I say that we are the enemies of society, and so much the worse for society. Hypocrite! Comrade Gregory accuses me of hypocrisy. He knows as well as I do that I am keeping all my engagements and doing nothing but my duty. I do not mince words. I do not pretend to. We do not want the Supreme Council of Anarchy infected with a maudlin mercy. Have Gregory and his milk and water methods on the Supreme Council. I would offer myself for election.
Stop, you Stop, I tell you. I move as an amendment that Comrade Syme be appointed to the post.
Stop all this, I tell you. Stop it. It is all impossible.
I beg to second the election.
Comrades, I kneel to you. Do not elect this man. The question is that Comrade Syme be elected to the post of Thursday on the General Council.
And 3 minutes afterwards, Mr. Gabriel Syme of the Secret Police Service was elected to the post of Thursday on the General Council of the Anarchists of Europe. A moment later, I found myself somehow or other face to face with Gregory.
You are a devil.
And you are a gentleman.
Comrade Thursday, the boat is quite ready.
Comrade Gregory, you've kept your word. You're a man of honor, and I thank you.
What do you mean? What did I promise you?
A very entertaining evening. My name is really Gabriel Syme. I'm not merely a detective who pretends to be a poet. I'm really a poet who has become a detective. I come of a family of cranks. One of my uncles always walked about without a hat. And another had made an unsuccessful attempt to walk about with a hat and nothing else. Being surrounded with every conceivable kind of revolt from infancy, I had to revolt into something, so I revolted into the only thing left, which was sanity. Now, some months before that evening in Saffron Park, I appeared before a high official in Scotland Yard. I was led to a side door, and almost before I knew what I was doing, I was suddenly shown into a room, the abrupt blackness of which startled me like a blaze of light.
Are you the new recruit? All right, you're engaged.
I really have no experience.
No one has any experience of the Battle of Armageddon.
But I'm really unfit.
You're willing, that is enough.
Well, really? I don't know any profession of which mere willingness is the final test.
I do. Martyrs. I'm condemning you to death. Good day.
Where my adventure ultimately led me, I've already told you. At about 1:30 on a February night, I found myself steaming on a small tug up the silent Thames, the duly elected Thursday of the Central Council of Anarchists. As we came alongside, the great stones of the embankment were big and black against the huge white dawn. I leapt out of the boat onto the slimy steps. The tug put off again and turned upstream. And I saw that there was a man leaning over the parapet and looking out across the river. And then the man smiled. And his smile was a shock. For it was all on one side, going up the right cheek and down on the left. With the dark dawn and the deadly errand and the loneliness and the great dripping stones, there was something unnerving in it. There was the silent river and the silent man. And there was the last nightmare touch, that his smile had suddenly went wrong.
If we walk up towards Leicester Square, we shall just be in time for breakfast. Sunday always insists on an early breakfast.
At one corner of Leicester Square, there projected the balcony of a prosperous but quiet hotel. The balcony contained a breakfast table, and round the breakfast table, glowing in the sunlight, were a group of noisy and talkative men, all dressed in the insolence of fashion. Here, then, was the secret conclave of the European dynamiters. Then, as I continued to stare at them, I saw something that I had not seen before, literally because it was too large to see. At the nearest end of the balcony, blocking up a great part of the perspective, was the back of a great mountain of a man. I first thought that the weight of him must break down the balcony of stone. This man was planned enormously in his original proportions, like a statue, carved deliberately as colossal. His head, crowned with white hair, as seen from behind, looked bigger than a head ought to be. The ears that stood out from it looked larger than human ears. His sense of size was so staggering that when I saw him, all the other figures seemed quite suddenly to dwindle and become dwarfish. They were still sitting there as before with their flowers and frock coats. But now it looked as if the big man was entertaining 5 children to tea. I never thought of asking whether the monstrous man who almost filled and broke the balcony was the great President Sunday, whom the others had stood in awe. I knew it was so. As I walked across the inner room towards the balcony, the large face of Sunday grew larger and larger, and I was gripped with a fear that when he was quite close, the face would be too big to be possible, and that I would scream aloud. I remembered that as a child I would not look at the mask of Memnon in the British Museum, because it was a face and so large. By an effort braver than that of leaping over a cliff, I went to an empty seat at the breakfast table and sat down. At that moment, the president was addressing a man, out of whose collar there sprang a bewildering bush of brown hair and beard that almost obscured the eyes, like those of a Skye terrier. The man's name, it seemed, was Gogol. He was a Pole. And in this circle of days, he was called Tuesday.
Our friend Tuesday insists on the ways of the stage conspirator. Now, if a gentleman goes about London in a top hat and a frock coat, no one need know that he's an anarchist. But if a gentleman puts on a top hat and a frock coat and then goes about on his hands and knees, well, he may attract attention.
I am not good at concealment. I am not ashamed of the cause.
Yes, you are, my boy, and so is the cause of you.
I am not good at deception.
Right, my boy, right. You aren't good at anything.
As I looked at the others, I began to see in each of them exactly what I had seen in the man by the river. Each man was subtly and differently wrong. Next to me sat Tuesday, the tousle-headed Gogol. Next was Wednesday, a certain Marquis de Saint-Eustache. In the gloom and thickness of his beard, a dark red mouth showed sensual and scornful. Whatever he was not a Frenchman. Then came me, and next, a very old man, Professor de Worms, who was Friday. The red flower in his buttonhole showed up against a face that was literally discolored like lead. The whole hideous effect was as if some drunken dandies had put their clothes upon a corpse. And right at the end sat the man called Saturday. His name was Dr. Bull. There was nothing whatever odd about him except that he wore a pair of dark, almost opaque spectacles. And it occurred to me that his eyes might be covered up because they were too frightful to see. Such were the 6 men who had been sworn to destroy the world. Only 3 days afterwards, it appeared, the King of England was to meet the President of the French Republic in Paris. And over their bacon and eggs upon their sunny balcony, these beaming gentlemen had decided how both should die. Even the instrument was chosen. The black-bearded Marquis, it appeared, was to carry the bomb. Most of the talkers paid little attention to me, but the President was always looking at me steadily and with a great and baffling interest. I was sure that in some silent and extraordinary way, Sunday had found out that I was a spy. Meantime, the men were eating as they talked. The Marquis took a great bite of bread and jam.
I have often wondered whether it wouldn't be better for me to do it with a knife. And it would be a new emotion to get a knife into a French president and wriggle it around.
You are wrong. The knife was merely the expression of the old personal quarrel with a personal tyrant. Dynamite is not only our best tool, but our best symbol. It expands. It also destroys because it broadens. And the man's brain is a bomb. My brain feels like a bomb night and day. It must expand. It must expand. A man's brain must expand. If it breaks the universe.
I don't want the universe broken up just yet. I want to do a lot of beastly things before I die. I thought of one yesterday in bed.
The question, gentlemen, is how Comrade Wednesday is to strike the blow. As to the actual arrangements, I suggest that tomorrow he should go first of all.
Before we discuss that, I have something very particular to say.
The instant of choice had come at last. The pistol was at my head.
More speeches, more compromise.
Go. Sit down with the other gentlemen at this table. For the first time this morning, something intelligent is going to be said.
I sat down first. No one except me seemed to have any notion of the blow that was about to fall.
Comrades, we have spun out this farce long enough. We were discussing plans and naming places. I propose that those plans and places should be left wholly in the control of Comrade Saturday, Dr. Bull. Not one word more about the plans and places must be said at this meeting.
They all moved feverishly in their seats, except me. I sat stiff in mine with my hand in my pocket and on the handle of my loaded revolver.
Gentlemen, there is a spy at this table. He'll waste no more words. His name...
I half rose from my seat, my finger firm on the trigger.
His name is Gogol. He's that hairy humbug over there who pretends to be a Pole.
How in God's name did you
And
know?
now, my man, I gather that you fully understand your position.
You bet. I see it's a fair cop. All I say is I don't believe any Pole could have imitated my accent like I did his.
I concede the point. I believe your accent to be inimitable, so I shall practice it in my bath. Do you mind leaving your beard with your card?
Not a bit.
Tuesday, if you ever tell the police or any human soul about us, I shall have exactly 2.5 minutes of discomfort. On your discomfort, I will not dwell. Good day. Mind the step.
The detective who had masqueraded as Gogol rose to his feet without a word and walked out of the room with an air of perfect nonchalance. There was a slight stumble outside the door which showed that the departing detective had not minded his step.
Time is flying. I must get off at once. I have to take the chair at a humanitarian meeting.
Would it not be better to discuss further the details of our project now than that the spy has left us?
Secretary, if you take your head home and boil it for a turnip, it might be useful. I can't say, but it might.
I really fail to understand.
You fail to understand? Why, you dancing donkey. You didn't want to be overheard by a spy, did you? How do you know you aren't overheard now?
With these words, Sunday shouldered his way out of the room, shaking with incomprehensible scorn. Now, if the last words of the president meant anything, they meant that I had, after all, not passed unsuspected. The other 4 got to their feet, betook themselves elsewhere to find lunch. Only the old anarchist, old Professor de Worms, remained behind, seated before me at the table.
Mr. Gabriel Syme.
Yes, Professor?
You policeman.
Policeman? Whatever made you think of a policeman in connection with me?
The process was simple enough. I thought you looked like a policeman. I think so now.
Why must I be a policeman? Do let me be a postman.
You hear me ask a plain question? You paltering spy. Are you or are you not the police detective?
No.
You swear it. If you swear falsely, will you be damned? Will you be sure that the devil dances at your funeral? Will you see that the nightmare sits on your grave? You are an anarchist. You are a dynamiter. Above all, you are not in any sense a detective. You are not in the British police.
I'm not in the British police. Professor de Worms fell back in his seat with a curious air of kindly collapse.
Well, that's a pity because I am.
Because you are what?
I am a policeman, a special policeman, and I serve under the man in the dark room.
The man in the dark room? I understand now. Of course. You're not an old man at all.
I can't take my face off here. It's rather an elaborate makeup. Did you know that man Gogol was one of us?
No. But didn't you?
I knew no more than the dead.
Why, then there were 3 of us there. 3 of us sitting here out of 7. And it's a fighting number. If we'd only known that there were 3.
We were 3. If we'd been 300, we still could have done nothing.
Not if we were 300 against 4.
No. Not if we were 300 against Sunday.
Professor, it's intolerable. Are you afraid of this man?
Yes, I am. So are you.
Yes, you're right. I am afraid of him. Therefore, I swear by God that I will seek out this man whom I fear until I find him and strike him on the mouth. If heaven were his throne and the earth his footstool, I swear that I would pull him down.
How? Why?
Because I'm afraid of him. And no man should leave in the universe anything of which he is afraid.
Have you any idea exactly what you're going to do?
Yes, I'm going to prevent this bomb being thrown in Paris.
Have you any conception how?
No.
You remember, of course, that when we broke up rather hurriedly, the whole arrangements for the atrocity were left in the private hands of the Marquis and Dr. Bull. The Marquis is by this time probably crossing the Channel. The only man who knows where he's going is Dr. Bull.
Confound it, and we don't know where Bull is.
Yes. I know where he is.
Will you tell me?
I'll take you there.
What do you mean? Would you join me? Will you take the risk?
Young man, you think that it is possible to pull down the president. I know that it is impossible, and I'm going to try it.
Call your special attention to the new series of broadcasts by the Mercury Theater with Orson Welles as star and director, which will commence next Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. And now a brief pause for station identification. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. We continue now with the performance of G.K. Chesterton's The Man Who Was Thursday by Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air.
The professor led me to a very respectable inn. And in that place we dined very thoroughly.
Can you play the piano?
Yes, I'm supposed to have a good touch.
You would have done just as well if you could work a typewriter.
Thank you. You flatter me.
Listen to me. There is no man except the president who is so seriously startling and formidable as Dr. Bull, that little grinning fellow in goggles. Depend on it. Sunday was not asleep when he locked up all the plans of this outrage in the round, black head of Dr. Bull.
Do you think that this unique monster will be soothed if I play the piano to him?
I mentioned the piano because it gives one quick and independent fingers. Sign, if we are to go through this interview and come out sane or alive, we must have some code of signals between us that this brute will not see. I have made a rough alphabetical cipher corresponding to the 5 fingers like this. Listen. B. A. D. Bad. A word we may frequently require.
I began to study the scheme. It didn't take me long to learn how we might convey simple messages by what would seem to be idle taps upon a table or knee. It was not long before Dr. Bull came in, sat down at our table. He smiled brightly.
You're early this evening, gentlemen.
The quiet good humor of his manner left us helpless. We sat staring at each other in silence. I have an intuition. Then sit on it. It is quite an extraordinary intuition. Extraordinary, right? I am a poet. You're a dead man. You scarcely realize how poetic my intuition is. It has that certain quality we sometimes feel in the coming of spring. Go to blazes. Dr. Bull. Quiet. Dr. Bull. Dr. Bull, would you do me a small favor? Would you be so kind as to take off your spectacles? Dr. Bull rose slowly, still smiling, and took off his spectacles. He was sitting in the chair before us. And we saw there a very boyish-looking young man. The smile was still there, but it might have been the first smile of a baby. Dr. Bull, I am a police officer.
The dark room.
The dark room.
Well, I'm awfully glad you came so early, for we can all start for France together. Yes, I'm in the force, all right.
But good heavens, if this were true, there were more blasted detectives than there were blasted dynamiters at the blasted council.
We might easily have fought. We were 4 against 3.
No, we were not 4 against 3. We were not so lucky. We are 4 against 1.
An hour later, we were already on the Calais boat. The fact that comes of it is this. We 3 are alone on this planet. Now we must do something to keep the Marquis in Calais till tomorrow midday, while the King goes safely through Paris. The only thing I can see to do is actually to take advantage of the very things that are in the Marquis's favor. Gentlemen, I'm going to profit by the fact that he is a nobleman and has many friends and moves in the best society.
What the devil are you talking about?
The Marquis cannot deny that he is a gentleman, and in order to put the matter of my social position quite beyond a doubt, I propose, at the earliest opportunity, to knock his hat off. Oh, but here we are in the harbor. Gentlemen, we've reached Calais. A band was playing in a Café Chantant hidden somewhere among the trees, where sat the Marquis de Saint-Eustache. The man had 2 companions, solemn Frenchmen in silk hats.
You are Monsieur Syme, I think.
And you are the Marquis de Saint-Eustache. Permit me to pull your nose, which I attempted to do, but the 2 men in top hats held me back. This man has insulted me.
Insulted you when?
Oh, just now. He's insulted my mother.
Insulted your mother?
Well, anyhow, my aunt.
But how can the Marquis have insulted your aunt just now? He has been sitting here all the time.
Ah, it was what he
I
said.
said nothing at all except about the band. I only said that I like Wagner, played well.
It was an allusion to my family. My aunt played Wagner badly. It was a painful subject. We are always being insulted about it.
This seems most extraordinary.
Oh, I assure you, the whole of your conversation was simply packed with sinister allusions to my aunt's weaknesses.
Oh, this is nonsense. I, for one, have said nothing for half an hour, except that I like the singing of that girl with the black hair.
Well, there you are again. My aunt's was red.
It seems to me that you're simply seeking a pretext to insult the Marquis.
By George. What a clever chap you are.
Seeking a quarrel with me. By heaven, there was never a man who had to seek long. These gentlemen will perhaps act for me. There are still 4 hours of daylight. Let us fight this evening.
Marquis, your action is worthy of your fame and blood. Permit me to consult with the gentleman in whose hands I shall place myself. Good day.
Syme, what are you up to?
Now listen carefully. Bull, Professor, you are my seconds. And you must insist on the duel coming off after 7 tomorrow, so as to keep him from catching the 7:45 for Paris. If he misses that train, he misses the King of England. You understand? So at 7:20, we met on a small meadow not far from the railway. I'd made up my mind that I could avoid disabling the Marquis and prevent the Marquis from disabling me for at least 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, the Paris train would have gone by.
Gentlemen, engage.
I'm not a bad fighter. Every now and then, I could almost fancy that I felt my point go home. But there was no blood on the blade or my shirt. And now we could hear the Paris train. There was no doubt about the hit this time. I was as certain that I had stuck my blade into my enemy as a gardener that has stuck his spade into the ground. Yet there was no blood on it at all. Marquis fought wildly. He constantly looked away at the railway line, almost as if he feared the train more than the pointed steel. I aimed less at the Marquis's body and more at his throat and head. A minute and a half afterwards, I felt the point enter the man's neck below the jaw. It came out clean. I thrust again and made what should have been a bloody scar on the Marquis's cheek. But there was no scar.
Stop! I want to say something. It is rather important. Mr. Syme, you expressed a wish to pull my nose. Would you oblige by pulling my nose now as quickly as possible? I have to catch a train.
I protest that this is most irregular.
Will you or will you not pull my nose? Come, Mr. Syme. Don't be selfish. Pull my nose at once when I ask you.
I took 2 paces forward and seized the Roman nose of this remarkable nobleman. I pulled it hard, and it came off in my hand.
If anyone has the use for my left eyebrow, he can have it. Do accept my left eyebrow. It is the kind of thing that might come in useful any day.
The Marquis was recklessly throwing parts of himself right and left about the field.
You are making a mistake, but it can't be explained just now. I tell you, the train has come into the station.
Yes, Marquis, and the train shall go out of the station. It shall go out without you.
Will you drive me mad?
You shall not go by the train.
You great, fat, blasted, blear-eyed, blundering, thundering, brainless, doddering, blasted fool. You great, silly, pink-faced boy that turnip.
You shall not go by this train.
And why in the infernal blazes should I want to go by the train?
We know all. You are going to Paris to throw a bomb.
Going to Jericho to throw a Jabberwock. I didn't care about catching the train. I cared about whether the train caught me, and now, by God, it has caught me.
What do you mean?
It means everything, the end of everything. Sunday has us now in the hollow of his hand.
Us? What do you mean by us?
The police, of course. I am no Marquis. I am Inspector Ratcliffe of Scotland Yard.
Then the whole bally lot of us on the Anarchist Council were against anarchy. Every born man was a detective except the president and his personal secretary. What can it mean?
It means that we are struck dead. Don't you know Sunday? I tell you, he's bought every trust. He's captured every cable. He has control of every railway line, especially of that railway line. The whole movement was controlled by him. Half the world was ready to rise for him. But there were just 5 people, perhaps, who could have resisted him. And the old devil put them on the Supreme Council to waste their time in watching each other. Sunday knew that the professor would chase Syme through London, that Syme would fight me in France, and he was combining great masses of capital, seizing great lines of telegraphy, while we 5 idiots were running after each other like a lot of confounded babies playing blind man's buff. And since you really want to know what was my objection to the arrival of that train, I'll tell you. My objection was that Sunday or his secretary has just this moment got out of it.
We all turned our eyes toward the station. A considerable bulk of people seemed to be moving in our direction.
They may be ordinary tourists.
Ordinary tourists wear black masks halfway down the face.
It was quite true that the leader in front wore a black half mask almost down to his mouth. And the mouth was smiling, a crooked smile, on one side of the face.
I can't believe it. The thing is nonsense. The plain people of a peaceable French town.
Someone has shot at us.
Pray resume your remarks, Dr. Bull. You are talking, I think, about the plain people of a peaceable French town.
Stop! Here come the police!
They're charging them out.
No, they're forming along the parade.
They've unslung their carbines.
Yes, and they're going to fire on us.
Police have joined the mob.
The mob, advancing steadily, was almost on top of us.
Charge the anarchists!
Charge the anarchists!
There was no doubt of it. The leader was Monday, Secretary of the Council. Under the black mask, his mouth was working horribly.
Monday! Stop! Charge the anarchists! Swords! For our time has come to die!
There is some mistake, Mr. Syme. I heartily think you understand your position. I arrest you in the name of the law.
Of the law? But you are the Secretary of the Anarchist Council.
Nonsense. I am a detective from Scotland Yard.
That night, 5 bewildered but hilarious detectives returned to London. And next morning, having found Gogol, we marched stolidly toward the hotel in Leicester Square.
This is more cheerful. We're 6 men going to ask one man what he means.
I think it's a bit queerer than that. I think it's 6 men going to ask one man what they mean. We saw at once the little balcony and a figure that looked too big for it. He was sitting alone with bent head, poring over a newspaper, but all his counselors would come to vote him down, cross that square as if we were watched out of heaven by 100 eyes. We went up the dark stair in silence.
Delightful. So pleased to see you all. What an exquisite day it is. Is the king dead?
No, sir, there has been no massacre. I bring you news of no such disgusting spectacle.
Disgusting spectacles? You mean Dr. Bull's spectacles?
My spectacles are blackened, but I'm not. Look at my face.
I dare say it's the sort of face that grows on one. In fact, it grows on you. I dare say it'll grow on me someday.
We have come here to know what all this means. Who are you? What are you?
What am I? If you want to know what you are, you're a set of highly well-intentioned young jackasses.
And you, what are you?
What am I?
The president rose slowly to incredible heights, like some enormous wave about to arch above us and break.
You want to know what I am, do you? Bull, you're a man of science. Grub in the roots of these trees and find out the truth about them. Syme, you're a poet. Stare at those morning clouds and tell me the truth about morning clouds. But I tell you this, that you will have found out the truth of the last tree and the topmost cloud before the truth about me. You will understand the sea, and I shall still be a riddle. You shall know what the stars are, and not know what I am. Since the beginning of the world, all men have hunted me like a wolf. Kings and sages and poets and lawgivers, all the churches and all the philosophers. But I have never been caught yet, and the skies will fall in the time I turn to bay. I have given them a good run for their money, and I will now.
Before any of us could move, the monstrous man had swung himself over the balustrade of the balcony, yet before he dropped, he pulled himself up again and thrust his great chin over the edge of the balcony.
There's one thing I'll tell you, though, about who I am. I am the man in the dark room who made you all policemen.
Sunday fell from the balcony, bouncing on the stones below like a great ball of India rubber, and went bounding off towards the corner of the Alhambra, where he hailed a hansom cab and sprang inside of it. Of course, we all followed him, and at the highest ecstasy of speed, Sunday turned round, and sticking his great grinning head out of the cab, he made a horrible face at us, flung a ball of paper at me, and vanished. I caught the paper.
What does it say, Syme?
Let's see. No one would regret anything in the nature of an interference by the Archdeacon more than I. I trust it will not come to that. But for the last time, where are your galoshes? The thing is too bad, especially after what Uncle said. Fire engine appeared, and the president leaped incredibly from his hansom, caught the back of the engine, and slung himself onto it.
After him! There's no mistaking the fire engine!
Our cabmen whipped up their horses, and the president acknowledged this proximity by coming to the back of the fire engine, bowing repeatedly, kissing his hand, and finally flinging out to us a neatly folded note.
Read it! Read it! Fly at once! The truth about your salvus stretches is known! Our friends! What place is this?
Sunday had jumped from the fire engine over an iron gate, and we'd followed him to a kind of park.
Can it be the old devil's house?
No, you fools! It's the zoo!
Come this way.
That's what? Come where?
The elephant.
An elephant?
An elephant's gone mad and run away.
What?
Yes, he's run away with an old gentleman, a poor old gentleman with white hair.
What sort of old
A
gentleman?
very large and fat old gentleman in light grey clothes.
The elephant has not run away with him. He has run away with the elephant. And by thunder, there he is.
There was no doubt about it this time. Clean across the space of grass, with a crowd screaming and scampering gaily at his heels, went a huge gray elephant. On its back sat President Sunday with all the placidity of a sultan.
Stop him! He'll be out the gate!
He's out of the gate! Through street after street, through district after district went the prodigy of the flying elephant, and we followed it through the city, out into the suburbs, and finally to a fairgrounds. The president had disappeared. Look! Look over there!
Look at what?
Look at the captive balloon!
Why the blazes should I look at a captive balloon? What is there queer about a captive balloon?
Nothing, except that it isn't captive.
10,000 devils! He's got into it!
We'd followed that balloon. All afternoon we'd followed it, and then, about twilight, the preposterous thing had staggered in the sky and sunk from view into the woods.
Oh, if he's cheated us all by getting killed, it would be like one of his larks.
And almost at the same moment, all 6 of us realized that we were not alone in the little field. Across a square of turf, a tall man was coming towards us, leaning on a strange long staff like a scepter. His advance was very quiet. He might have been one of the shadows of the wood.
Gentlemen, my master has a carriage waiting for you in the road just by.
Who is your master?
I was told you knew his name.
Where is this carriage?
Has been waiting only a few moments. My master has only just come home.
All 6 of us compared notes afterwards and quarreled. But we all agreed that in some unaccountable way the place where we came that night reminded us of our boyhood. It was either this elm top or that crooked path. It was either this scrap of orchard or that shape of a window. But each man of us declared that he could remember this place before he could remember his mother.
Refreshments are provided for you in your room.
I entered a splendid suite of apartments that seemed to be designed specially for me.
I have put out your clothes, sir.
Clothes? I have no clothes except these.
My master asks me to say that there is a fancy dress ball tonight. You're to be dressed as Thursday, sir.
Dressed as Thursday? Doesn't sound a very warm costume.
Oh, yes, sir. The Thursday costume is quite warm, sir. It fastens up to the chin.
I was led onto a very large old English garden full of torches and bonfires, by the broken light of which a vast carnival of people were dancing in motley dress. I seemed to see every shape in nature imitated in some crazy costume. There was a man dressed as a windmill with enormous sails, a man dressed as an elephant, a man dressed as a balloon. There was a dancing lamppost, a dancing apple tree, a dancing ship. One would have thought that the untamable tune of some mad musician had set all the common objects of field and street dancing an eternal jig. And long afterwards, when I was middle-aged and at rest, I could never see one of those particular objects, a lamppost or an apple tree or a windmill, without thinking that it was a strayed reveler from that revel of a masquerade. On one side of this lawn, in a kind of crescent, stood 7 great chairs, the thrones of the 7 days. And so the night wore on, and finally the last of the dancers vanished, and the fire faded as the long, slow, strong stars came out. And we 7 strange men were left alone, like 7 stone statues on our chairs of stone. Then Sunday spoke.
We will eat and drink later. Let us remain together a little, we who have loved each other so sadly and have fought so long. I seem to remember only centuries of heroic war, in which you were always heroes, epic on epic, Iliad on Iliad, and you always brothers in arms.
Tell me, who are you?
I am the Sabbath. I am the peace of God.
I'm grateful to you. Not only for wine and hospitality here, but for many a fine scamper and free fight. But I should like to know. My soul and heart are as happy and quiet here as this old garden. But my reason is still crying out. I should like to know.
It seems so silly that you should have been on both sides and fought yourself
I have heard your complaints, and here, I think, comes another to complain. We will hear him also.
And we saw standing before us the red-headed poet of Saffron Park. Gregory! Why, this is the real anarchist.
Yes, I am the real anarchist.
And there came a day when the sons of God came before the Lord, and Satan also came with them.
You're right. I'm a destroyer. I would destroy the world if I could.
Oh, most unhappy man. Try to be happy. You have red hair like your sister.
I know what you are, all of you, from first to last. You're the people in power. You're the police, the great fat smiling men in blue and buttons. You're the law. You're the 7 angels of heaven, and you've had no troubles. Oh, I could forgive you everything if I could feel for once that you had suffered for 1 hour a real agony, such as I.
I see everything. Everything. Everything that there is. Why does each thing on earth war against each other thing? Why does a fly have to fight the whole universe? Why does a dandelion have to fight the whole universe? For the same reason that I had to be alone in the dreadful council of the days. So that each thing that obeys law may have the glory and the isolation of the anarchist. So that by tears and torture we may earn the right to say to this accuser, we also have suffered. I repel the slander. We have not been happy. I can answer for every one of the great gods of law whom he has accused. At least. And I saw suddenly the great face of Sunday. Have you ever suffered? As I gazed, the great face grew to an awful size larger than the colossal mask of Memnon, which had made me scream as a child. It grew larger and larger, filling the whole sky. Then in the blackness, before it entirely destroyed my brain, I seemed to hear a distant voice saying a commonplace text that I had heard somewhere.
Can ye drink of the cup that I drink of?
When men in books awake from a vision, they commonly find themselves in some place in which they might have fallen asleep. I could only remember that gradually and naturally I knew that I was awake and had been walking along a country lane. Dawn was breaking over everything, in colors at once clear and timid, as if nature made a first attempt at yellow and a first attempt at rose. A breeze blew so clean and sweet that one could not think it blew from the sky. It blew rather through some hole in the sky. I felt a simple surprise when I saw, rising all round me on both sides of the road, the red, irregular buildings of Saffron Park. I walked by instinct along one white road on which early birds hopped and sang, and found myself outside a fenced garden. And there I saw the sister of Gregory, Rosamond, the girl with the gold-red hair, cutting lilac before breakfast with the great unconscious gravity of a girl.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System, through its member stations coast to coast, and the network of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, has brought you a production of G.K. Chesterton's The Man Who Was Thursday, by Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air. The adaptation for radio was made by Mr. Welles. This Monday night concludes the summer broadcasts, which have introduced the Mercury Theater as the first complete theatrical producing company in radio. But the tremendous response which their efforts have drawn from all parts of the country has ensured their continuance with us through the coming months. The Columbia Broadcasting System is therefore proud to announce a new series of weekly productions by Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air, beginning next Sunday evening, September the 11th, from 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time. The first play next Sunday at 8 will be Vincent van Gogh, an original drama based on the letters of the famous painter to his brother Theo and the records of his biographers. In the cast this evening, Sunday, Eustace Wyatt, the Professor Ray Collins, Gregory George Coulouris, the Marquis Edgar Barrier, Gogol Paul Stewart, Bull Joseph Cotton, the Secretary Erskine Sanford, Witherspoon Alan Devitt, Rosamond Anna Stafford, and Gabriel Syme, The Man Who Was Thursday, by Orson Welles. Davidson Taylor supervised for the Columbia Network. This is Dan Seymour speaking. The orchestra was directed by Alexander Sembler. Remember, next Sunday evening at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air in Vincent van Gogh.
Be sure to be at your radio next Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. That's when the Lux Radio Theater begins its new series of broadcasts, same stations as last year. The first presentation will be Spawn of the North, with George Raft, Fred McMurray, John Barrymore, Dorothy Lamour, and Akim Tamiro. Next Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, you can unravel the meaning of that for yourself. The Mercury Theater did a fantastic job. This is why it's always such a treat to be able to bring you one of their productions. And Chesterton, just the way he said things, the dialogue, the descriptions, it is just such beautifully unique a language. It always makes anything by Chesterton great to listen to. By the way, if you'd like to hear a more expansive version of this, the BBC produced a 13-part version of this, and it was actually played on BBC Radio 7, their online drama station, back in July. All right, well, that'll do it from here. We'll be back tomorrow with The Thin Man. In the meantime, send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. And you can always give us a call, 208-991-4783. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.